Plays and Reviewed, the movie podcast that loves both fine cinema and schlock-schrash. We features the best movies maybe you never seen tonight. We dedicate the 1975 documentary Grey Garden by the Albert and David Maysles, It features the lives of Big Edie Beale and Little Edie Beale. Cult classic, queer classic, whatever. Your hosts are Shajadi and Kuzi. Now, let's get naked and smoke.
Welcome to Blazed and Reviewed.
Episode 9. I'm sorry. Episode 9.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm not all here tonight, guys. Episode 9, Grey Gardens. It's Cozy's pick. Yeah.
Yep. It is a movie that I love very much, that I've seen many, many times. It is a movie that I'm gay for. It's a movie that's very near and dear to my heart. Leo watched it for the first time in a while. And this is my first time in a long time, too.
So the official synopsis of Grey Gardens is this film explores the daily lives of two aging eccentric relatives of Jackie Kennedy Onassis. Edie Bouvier Beale and her mother Edith are the sole inhabitants of a Long Island estate. During the course of the documentary, they discuss their habits, desires, and former loves with filmmakers Albert and David Maysles. The women reveal themselves to be misfits and with outsized, engaging personalities. Much of the conversation is centered on their paths as mother and daughter now rarely leave the home.
Pretty good synopsis. I mean, a very objective synopsis. That's basically what it is.
To be fair, when you're writing just the synopsis, it's going on the back of the film. It's going on the short. You get a very brief spot to put. You tend to just...
So this was, I want to say... No. So this was filmed in 1995, like I said, by the Maysles. And the history was they were going to make a movie about Jackie Kennedy and her family and their many visits to the East Hamptons. And then it got canceled, which I'm kind of glad because that sounds...
Terrible?
Yeah, it sounds pretty terrible. But in the process, they met the Beales, and I obviously were very stricken by these characters. And
you think?
And then they decided to, we'll make a movie about these two.
So, like, I knew going into this, keep in mind, I haven't seen this movie since I was a tiny, small child, 9, 10, I was still in California. So definitely before I was 13. And probably actually in 96 when it would have hit basic TV.
Maybe.
Or not necessarily basic, but cable TV of some sort.
Sure.
Not a movie theater. It was on a television channel.
Yep.
I know that. I just don't know which one. And my mother told me who they were. And that all just blipped straight on out of my head for the remainder of my years.
So she basically saw it with brand new eyes.
Not that I don't know who Jackie Kennedy is. Not that I don't know who the Bouviers were. Apparently, they had Epstein's address.
There we go. I thought that was going to come up much later than it is.
Look for the screen capture that I grabbed in the newsletters. We haven't hit play yet to do the rewatch on silent, so I will wait to elaborate on this until we reach that point. But I just want to say that is how important this family was.
You know, I'm usually the one with a reach. This is a reach.
It's not, though.
She put a toe. You put a toe in that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I did. And I found enough connections to go ahead and dig a little deeper. Saying that the Kennedys, specifically JFK and Jackie O's family, were buddy-buddy with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, I'm not saying they were part of Pleasure Island or anything because he wouldn't have had that built until way later anyway. The first investigations of him came 10 years after this was filmed, I just want to point out. But we'll cover the rest of that.
This is an element that I've never considered, would never consider, and would continue not considering it.
So watch for that rabbit hole a little later, guys.
Let's talk about Grey Gardens. Grey Gardens is a house that was built, I want to say 1924? No, 1921. I'm sorry, 1913.
Are you sure?
Totally. 1913. It's a 14-bedroom house on 4 acres of land. The original owners, Anna Hills was the name, and she built walls out of Spanish concrete. I'm sorry, or whatever it is. It worked Spanish concrete, which gave it the name Grey Gardens. And she built an elaborate garden inside of it till it was bought in 1924 by Mr. Beale, as she calls her father, who lived there with her and Big Edie. I don't think little Edie was there till a while later when she moved in to take care of her mother.
Correct, because her father apparently, I don't know the history of little Edie or Big Edie, or of course I know who Jackie Kennedy is, of course I know who JFK is. I know some of the history, but I'm going to be honest, I know more of the actual Kennedy side, like JFK's family, like Rosemary Kennedy and all of that. I don't know a shit ton about the Bouviers and the Beales. I know who they are, I can identify them on paper, but I could not pass like a Jeopardy on their lives.
Big Edie was a Bouvier, and she was Jackie Kennedy's or Jackie Bouvier's aunt.
So she was Jackie's dad's sister?
She was Jackie's dad's sister, yes, because he was a Bouvier.
Correct, because she was Jackie Bouvier Kennedy.
Yes, so she married Beale and had little Edie, so that's Jackie's cousin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would they, considering how families were back then, and often spending so much time amongst families, would Jackie and little Edie have been contemporaries?
Yeah, they were. They were
like,
they
at
were
least
cousins.
In their youth, would they have potentially grown up together
early on? Because in 1946 they mention a Mexican divorce in the movie, because she literally got one. Mr. Beale had a mistress and ran away to Mexico and divorced Big Edie via telegram in 1946.
Okay.
So after that, he gave her an allowance, sort of, about, it was $300 a month for maintenance, which is equal to $5,000 today.
I could live on that.
You could, but then he just disappeared and stopped sending the money.
I could not live on that.
And so, as slowly as it did, the house fell into disrepair and neglect.
As it does.
Very
Winchester-y.
Yeah, I guess it did, in a way that later that you had to go probably
because it's all fixed up and everything now. It's like a bed and breakfast historical site.
Oh yeah, it sold for millions.
So it's it is. It's like the Winchester site. Like, they slapped some history on that after this documentary came out. They sold it for bank and now continue to utilize this history.
I'll get into the sale of the house a little bit later.
I was just thinking more along the lines of, if I wanted to go travel there right now,
you could.
You can. Not only you can, but it's still popping the same history, though. It's not just welcome to this brand new bed and breakfast. It's welcome to Grey Gardens, and here is what happened here.
If I went to it, which I'd love to, would be because of the history, because of this film.
They can't just let a house have a new history. And then you wonder why they're haunted.
I'm going to put a link. I'll put a link in the newsletter that is a news report that takes a tour of the house.
That's like Murder House. It wouldn't be fucking haunted if you stopped calling it Murder House. Okay, I'm just
have you seen
saying.
How real estate agents have been putting "not haunted" on the for sale signs?
I'm just saying, maybe if you stop talking about that, and I'm not saying don't disclose the ghosts. I'm just saying maybe quit with the history of certain things, not everything, just certain things that maybe don't need to be relevant 100 years later.
The power of suggestion is strong.
100 years later. 100 years later.
That, or it's a gas leak.
Ask Kiki what a Bouvier is, and she will probably give you some really long-winded animalian answer.
It's some kind of pastry.
Yeah, aren't they French people? Or
isn't that what they eat in New Orleans with their coffee?
A Bouvier, it's like, that's like the naked lady pictures, but they're tasteful, right?
Yeah.
No, that's boudoir.
That's a boudoir. That's
Close
a Bouvier. Bouvier photo
that's what you wear to cover your boobies. That's what Roxanne was wearing in Evil Tunes. The bloody Bouvier. I mean, bustier.
You're pulling out a lot of alliterations here. That's impressive.
No, I am not all here. I'm not all here.
Do you want to share what we smoked? Because I don't know what it is.
I do, because there's a bag. We smoked. It is from Cookies, which I believe is its own dispensary now.
Yeah, I go to Cookies all the time.
But it's also a brand, and this is called Snowman.
Oh, all right. Aptly named. 'Cause
Aptly
we
named.
are-
She was a girl with everything: money, looks, and social position. Her mother, a classic Bouvier beauty. Now they live amongst the souvenirs of their lives in Grey Gardens. This is their story, a love story, sort of. Hailed as one of the oddest, most beautiful films ever created.
Come on, we're not ready.
Grey Gardens, in New York, exclusively at the Paris Theater.
All of the fishies are swimming just fine.
So how did we get to this point with the house? As Big Edie lived there alone, as she will remind us often, the house fell in disrepair. Obviously, it reflects her state of mind at the time. As we can see, Big Edie has to be taken care of.
Where's the Bouvier money? Did her husband run off with that too?
Yeah, they cut it off.
Because I know women back then didn't have their own stuff.
She didn't have a bank account. She didn't have credit.
She would have, but it would have been all in her husband's name.
She owned the house. It was probably paid for because they bought it in 19.
Well, nobody's going to throw you out as long as it's paid for. And back then, rich people didn't have to pay property taxes.
I'm sure.
They still don't. But
East Hamptons. So as time went on, it was in 1972, the health department threatened to condemn the place. You don't get an impression in the movie, but there are other photographs. You do kind of. There are other photographs that show the real condition of the house,
sign up for the newsletter.
There is going to be a lot of info in the newsletter that give you more insight into this house and the history. So,
and not just imagery, because that will overload the newsletter, but also I have oodles of links that will take you to even more and more and more. This is its own rabbit hole. Speaking of rabbits, mine are binking all around the house.
It really is. I've been in this rabbit hole for many, many years. But so with that, there was just, you can even see on the outside, the house is just falling apart. There's a hole in the living room. There are raccoons living in the walls. There are 15 cats running around.
Well, to be fair, okay, there is an element of disrepair, of being unable to afford certain really big things. And then there is an element of disrepair. Homegirl is up there feeding the raccoons, okay? You can't combat the raccoon problem if you're literally dropping bread for them to eat in your attic.
To see her do it without context is pretty alarming, but as you get to know the character, it does sort of...
it's on brand. It's on brand. But my point is that you can't have a home that is habitable if you are... It's one thing to have pet raccoons.
Yes.
It's one thing to have pet raccoons. It's another to feed the wildlife.
My friend had raccoons in her walls for a while. It had to be for a while, because I used to go over to her house and I'd hear noises and I'm like, you've got Tommy knockers or you summon the Cenobites. So eventually she called an exterminator to get the raccoons out, and they put alpha male pheromones in the walls. So I guess she had some beta cuck raccoons.
Doesn't exist, right? The concept of the alpha male doesn't exist. Even in animals, it doesn't exist.
I know it doesn't exist.
So I really want to know now what they actually used.
That's I guess a more dominant raccoon than they are.
So really all you would need is to substitute any male pheromones.
Maybe the guy just pissed in the wall. Who knows?
Well, I'm just saying, is how does a raccoon know if you're an alpha male based on your piss? All it could be able to tell is if you were sick.
I don't know. That's not the point. The point is he didn't feed them dog food and Wonder Bread.
Well, no. Because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying when you made the comment about it kind of shows the deterioration of the mind, that is evident in the fact that it is one thing to just not be able to take care of your upkeep. I live in a 200-year-old building and my windows are not as sealed as a house, built in, 25, 30 years ago, 100 years ago even. As such, guess what? We've got a little bit of draft. We combat that. We have to do what we have to do. That is very different from me just having no windows and just open holes in my house.
At the time of filming, the house would have been 60 years old, give or take a few years.
Yeah, and that was at a time when that shit is built to last. So
definitely,
you can't say it's just it's an old house, because at 60, you can today. If you buy a house that's 60 years old, it's an old house. It's falling apart.
I wonder how winters work, because they are filming in the summer.
Yeah.
going into autumn.
And she's talking about she does not want to be there for another winter, even though we all know
That's
she's never going to fucking leave.
Talks about. It's all she talks about is how she has to leave. She can't be there for another summer. She can't be there for another day. So when the house was threatened to be condemned, and it was like, I don't think they had amenities in the house. It was a mess. So
they had the phone. She was on it.
They had a phone, or at least they had a phone then, because
they had electricity because the lights were on.
So it went,
or oil,
well,
gas.
Now it was. This is so 5 years before, or 3 years before this.
Oh,
so news got out. So because Jackie Kennedy's relatives are living in this squalor, in this dilapidated house, so it got kind of called out.
She wasn't Onassis by then.
She wasn't Onassis by then. So it got out, and actually, so Jackie Onassis funded the cleanup and repair of the house.
Explain to me how she didn't know.
I mean, like, honestly, though, they were so isolated there, and they probably
you
didn't have
stop to check in on your aunt, like, at all.
I guess not.
Like, at all.
I guess not.
Like, how many other family members did you have that were like yours, not your husband's? Like, your very rich husband on an island.
It's your own aunt. I don't know. I mean, maybe
you stayed in contact with your Kennedy family, though.
So, well, let's be honest. Probably it coming public made Jackie look pretty bad, and like, I guess I'll step in and help my relatives.
Does anyone find it interesting that, you know, like the Kennedy side had Rosemary and like the Bouvier side had Edie, and
that's a good point. That is a good point. And
like, anybody start to think about how, like, it comes to light that all these America's great families, which I don't want to get political, but we all know what they look like, and how
dynasties.
They hid. It's common knowledge today that they hid away their imperfect family members in institutions or in houses, or locked them up, or whatever. Someone else is in charge, and they just forgot they existed. I mean, the Queen did it with one of her grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And why is anyone surprised, though, when these stories come out?
That is a good point. And I don't know how I didn't make that parallel the entire time I've been watching this movie. Sure, in the Kennedys' eyes, little Edie could be like one breakdown away from a lobotomy.
I mean, so I'm going to be honest here. This movie fucked me up. But here's why. So a couple years ago, I went through the process of the whole heal that inner child thing. Actually, it was only like a year ago, but whatever. And then I realized that after the inner child, you have to heal the angsty teen. Mm-hmm. She's a little bitch. And this movie is about the elderly. And I'm even going to say that about little Edie because she's like pushing 60, which is now, it's considered elderly. Okay. It's considered geriatric. Whereas what I saw was me and my mother when I was like 15.
Edie
16, 17, 18. And she does, and you know what it is it's because she says, not when I'm in New York. When I'm in New York, I can be a woman, but when I'm here, it's like I'm just my mother's little daughter.
Right.
And I fucking felt that shit.
There were several scenes that you felt, and
like,
I'll make it
because that was my life. Like, I escaped so many times only to end up right back where I started, never being able to get out because my mommy would never stop being my mommy. And expecting what she expected, not until many, 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 many years later when I was like 38, 35. So, I mean, yeah, if I had been in little Edie's shoes and had to live with my mother at 56 years old, I would have killed myself.
Can you imagine?
Like, remember when I said if I didn't know who this family was, I would suspect that this ends in a murder-suicide?
Very much.
Had that been me and my mother, it very much would have been a murder-suicide.
I will say this too. While I have seen this movie multiple times, I haven't seen it in so long, and I was for a few years a caretaker for my mother.
Yes.
And I haven't seen this movie since. And wow, oh my God, does it hit different watching this now. We both kind of seen it with these kind of new eyes. And as it fucked you up, it kind of fucked me up too, seeing it again in this new perspective.
And I think that is another reason we do the podcast that we do, because we watch these movies and sometimes we watch them with these brand new eyes as people who are in different stages of our lives. Mm-hmm. And you have to wonder how different it would have been for both Edie and little Edie if they had just been able to understand that they didn't have to follow a traditional role.
What did they say in Baby Jane?
Oh, all this time we could have been friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a whole different monologue I am not going to give you guys today. However, we should probably actually start this movie before we're here all night. I just now realized, actually, we've been going through this entire review for like 20 minutes without having hit play. And we should definitely do that.
Very much.
So it is definitely a documentary. I was unsure of that. I knew that it was, but I wasn't sure if it was a documentary or a docudrama.
It almost plays out as a drama, especially in the way that you can really tell that the power play, or the dynamic, I should say, between the two is almost is rehearsed. You would get the impression that these are like,
well, to a degree it would be, because even at the end of the day, what does she say? What does she say to her? And it was like, burn.
Oh, it was what is
aristocracy?
What is the defining element of aristocracy? Isn't it responsibility?
Yes.
Because
her mother was just bitching about something, and so it's like you just have to wonder under different circumstances. I'm sorry, you just do.
It's just part of the dynamic between the two. Big Edie, so they share a bedroom. It is one of the few inhabitable rooms in this house, even though there are 14 rooms in this house. So,
but it's not. It's just the most.
It's the
habitable.
Most. They have settled. Again, they probably could manage to have 2 bedrooms. They could probably clean one out. But to me, that bedroom represents their enmeshment with each other to that degree, that they are just always together.
She literally had a daughter for the sole purpose of having someone to take care of her when she was old.
Very much. There's a very telling dialogue where she's talking about her brothers. I guess Edie was the only daughter, and Big Edie is gushing about her sons for a minute, and literally he's like, I bet they never got any discipline. And Big Edie says they didn't need any. They were angels.
Yes, they were perfect.
They were perfect angels. And where they are, who knows? They don't get mentioned beyond that. They definitely don't make an appearance.
Well, I mean, if they were angels and they were smart and they were wonderful human beings, and they would have recognized the toxicity that is their mother and ran far from that.
Maybe they did.
It doesn't necessarily mean they were bad people, because at the end of the day, like when you look at Big Edie, if you look at Edith, I wouldn't have gone home to take care of you either.
But her taking care of her mother fit very well with her sort of narrative of her life, because it constantly goes back to that a lot when she talks about her failure to make something more of herself. So she has this very strong insecurity about it. So it's easy to say, I had to take care of my mother. My mother sent all these men away. Even earlier, my mother was having eye surgery. So
one of the most honest things that Edith says to her is that you never even tried.
There you go.
She kept going, I could have been something. I was going to make it. I was going to get my big break. And Edith says to her, you never even tried. And that was because she always knew. She knew from the get-go where she was going to end up. And as much as she wanted to fight it and play with it, she knew where she was going to end up. And she knew that it would just be easier to fall into perpetual victimhood.
But Big Edie probably had a hand in that, because at least if what we see in the film has always been the history, she does nothing but discourage little Edie. She's critical to the point to where when Edie is singing, Big Edie's criticism is louder than her singing.
The narration, stop it!
Yeah.
You need to shush! No, don't sing that.
She can't sing, so she's wiggling.
But what I find interesting, and again, this parallels my mother, is that when little Edie is out of earshot, Edith is all about that she really can sing, maybe even better than me.
Exactly. She has to be out of the room. And then there was
my mother did the same thing, and I think it's about the direct competition.
Oh, it is. There is a codependency and a competition going on at all times between these two. And when little Edie leaves the room, especially the story about the Polish man who proposed outside the window, and mother drove him away in 15 minutes, we find out, well, no, it's because he was put off by her mood and her mood swings, and Edith was like, "You better go for both of your own good." And she never takes the time to explain that to her daughter.
To be fair, I think that she used that. She was never going to let her daughter get married.
Well,
not unless whoever her daughter married would have secured her a better future.
She tried to get her daughter married to Paul Getty, who was a multimillionaire.
Yes.
When $1 million was a lot of money at one point. And
he was the equivalent of today's Bezos.
He was. She says he was the richest man in the world at one point. I'm not for sure, but maybe he was.
Probably at least up there, but keep in mind that this was a time that the richest men in the world were very limited to who knew about them. You would never have known about a Saudi millionaire in 1940.
Maybe, at least in America, there was no such thing as $1 billion. I mean...
Oh, no, not even corporations. I suppose, who made the first billion? Probably Ford?
Maybe Carnegie?
Could be.
Something like that.
But either way, it would have been in a business and it wouldn't have been a liquid million.
No. I mean,
or billion.
Even now, we can't fathom $1 billion. The number is based...
Oh, there's not a person on this planet that can literally hand me $1 billion in cash, not even Bezos himself.
No, of course not. But she tried to get Edie to marry what today might be a billionaire, and she says that she drove them away or refused. I don't know what the real
No, she was never going to let Edie marry anyone that wasn't going to benefit her own future.
She says at one point, "Oh, I can't have anyone take away my daughter. I'll be all alone. What do I do?" It's textbook codependency.
But that millionaire billionaire would have had enough money to ensure her later years.
Yes.
And probably had she annoyed him enough, a nice fat setup where she got to do whatever the hell she wanted.
Sure. Like I mentioned for a second that Edith, Big Edie, had been kept.
I think that cat has something wrong with it.
The poor cats. The cats are adorable in this.
So I hate the R word. I hate the R word. I don't believe in the R word. But there are animals that have something wrong with them due to inbreeding, and there's no other word for them but the R word. Because they are in fact animals, not humans.
In the sense of the very definition of the word.
You can't be an ableist to a cat. Because the cat was not designed for the human world in the first place.
I think my cat is an ableist to me. She looks down on me and my poor cat skills.
I was thinking that about our rays at work. And how they're sea puppies, right? And they splish and they splash. And they can't figure out why we, the dry two legs, are not in the water with them.
Right. My cat assumes I'm going out hunting every morning, and I come back with nothing.
Yeah,
big dumb cat.
We're terrible, terrible cow-nosed rays. We're terrible rays.
We're bad. Man, it was Brian Geisen. Man is a bad animal.
However, I don't believe my bunnies feel that way. They do not see me as a bunny.
Yeah, sure. You are. What are you to them? Who? Anyway. So the Beales spend.
To Vanessa.
Well, we know what you are, Vanessa. A dirty blank.
Yeah.
The Beales spend a lot of time out on their patio sunning. They've got a lot of sun. You can tell by their skin. Big Edie, like I said, has been taken care of. She's been kept her whole life.
Women were, though. I mean, one way or the other, you just were. Whether you had money or no money didn't matter.
But we're getting into the 70s where, women's lib, quote unquote, was a thing. But Big Edie is in this past world. She's still a remnant of that world, and she wants to keep little Edie there with her in a way.
Well, somebody's got to make sure that she is taken care of because she never learned any skills.
Besides singing, the great singer, Big Edith Beale.
That's great, but what is that going to do for you now? That is not going to bring you your coffee.
No, but this film is very much a stage for the Edies. At every chance they get, they perform. And we'd also be remiss if we didn't talk about little Edie's style, her costumes, as she calls it.
Honestly, if they made this into an actual film, like line by line, but with a cast.
They did.
Again, Tilda Swinton.
Tilda would have killed it as little Edie. They made a movie and Drew Barrymore was little Edie. I haven't seen it. I won't see it. I don't care.
I do like Drew, but I just don't know.
I don't understand why you would. Why do you remake a perfect film?
You don't. It's not even about that. It's why would you fictionalize something that's already so raw?
Yeah, this movie is
It's not like when you have to take liberties to expand upon what really happened, but you can't say what really happened for legalities and stuff. So you make it a work of fiction so that you can get a little gorier
You're
or
going to
whatever.
fictionalize real events. I mean, this
But you
did
don't
not
have to with this.
It didn't have the entry placard that Evil Tunes had that said it was absolutely true. So, you know, we can have our doubts.
That's true. Maybe they fictionalized the whole thing to get money.
Another thing
Maybe there was nothing wrong with the house. They just wanted to piss off Jackie O.
That's very likely. Little Edie also, we see her reading her horoscope book with a magnifying glass because she desperately needs glasses but will not wear them.
Also, she needs to find a Libra man.
She makes a comment a few times that's all I need. I just need a man. I need this. She talks about the Maysles. They're like, this man.
Oh, David, where have you been all my life?
Where have you been all my life? I just need to find a Libra man.
David.
A manager, as long as he's a Libra.
Yes. Because she needs to be. She's like, I need to be married. That sounds like Jerry. Oh, is that Jerry over there? Who the hell is Jerry?
Jerry is their handyman, their handy boy.
Are there interviews with Jerry?
There are very much. There is a documentary called The Marble Fawn of Grey Gardens about Jerry. Jerry was in this movie. He disappeared for decades, and then he showed back up. Too. And I have a link in the newsletter.
That Jerry?
That's Jerry.
So he's a kid.
Yeah.
He's like
a movie, right?
Kid.
Yeah,
I did. Yes, I watched the movie. It doesn't mean that I was like, everybody was. I mean, I'd be honest. So, like, from a purely neuro-spicy point of view, this movie is very overwhelming. Everybody is talking at the same time. Like, whoever is behind the camera, whichever one it is, doesn't matter, is talking and asking questions, which is his job. It's fine. But then little Edie's answering, and then big Edie's answering, and then they're both singing, and then Jerry comes in, and like the only people not making noise, ironically, are the cats.
There is very rarely one person talking in this movie. When little Edie takes she tries to take them aside and talks about like she's imagining that Jerry is moving in because he brought them a washing machine.
Yes.
And so yeah, Jerry's there. He does odd jobs. He goes and picks up their shopping, and I don't know. Big Edie loves him just like her son. She fawns over Jerry. Just as she calls him the Marble Fawn, which is a book by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
So I'm going to be honest. I think little Edie fawns over.
Little Edie.
She is the Marble Fawn.
Not to talk about Juliette Lewis again, but she's having a fantasy.
She's not having a fantasy, honey. In order to have one, you have to not have them. Also, and for her, she's just straight up living a fantasy.
Can you blame her, though? I mean, she's living in this house with this woman. She has to escape to a happy place.
When I think about some of the places I went in my head, yeah.
There you go. So, I mean, like maybe you relate to little Edie more than we thought.
Yeah.
But so The Marble Fawn was a book by Nathaniel Hawthorne. In it, it's also called Transformation. But I don't know. So fawn is the same as a satyr. So, I mean, there's unintended, means and symbolism in the movie. So the Marble Fawn is a satyr. A satyr is like this uninhibited, highly sexualized.
For those who are wondering, the god of animals and the god of the forest is Pan, and Pan was a satyr or a fawn.
Yeah, very much so. If you've seen Pan's Labyrinth, you know what a fawn is. So... And the Marble Fawn, I think I don't know. I haven't read it, but I read a synopsis. I don't know. Maybe there's some Pygmalion elements too, because one of the characters looks like a marble fawn. He's compared to David, so he resembles this like marble statue of a satyr. And the fact that she gives that name to Jerry is very interesting. That because in her fantasy though she's imagining that Jerry is trying to get close to her, maybe through her mother or something like that. Something that Big Edie immediately shoots down.
Because at the end of the day, even though Big Edie knows that she is so in the wrong for how she has treated her child and continues to do so, she's also probably the one of the two with the more coherent mind.
Big Edie.
Yeah.
She clearly is. I mean,
she's way more aware of herself and her environment, and her competency is much higher. Like, little Edie has just accepted her fate and decided, you know, I'm just going to exist, and totally becomes Nell with Jodie Foster.
Miss the Chickapay.
Yeah, but without the twin.
I have always thought Big Edie spends the majority of the movie in bed. More time than Madeline Kahn spends in the elevator. But she is very much conducting from that bed. With the, she...
Oh, her throne went from a chair to a bed. That's all.
It did. And she is heard constantly in the background yelling for Edie things. She's like, come here, hurry up. And then bring me the telephone.
Well, you also have to remember that this is now her only kingdom. This is what her kingdom has become. She once had a great kingdom. She once had a great kingdom where she was loved and beloved and admired by many.
Mhm.
And just like her daughter wanted, she was loved by many men and admired by many men and had this great talent and money. And she was the American dream. And she now has to be, she's in a place of understanding. She has an awareness that her daughter does not have, that this is literally all she has left. Like, she will never set foot in that kingdom again because, like I always say, I live in a fortress, but that fortress is just my fortress.
She very much still reigns over what is left. She's surrounded on her bed by old photos of herself. She has her room around her is a museum to herself. She has a beautiful portrait of herself in the corner that the cat later shits behind. She has old photos of herself everywhere, her old records that she did with her accompanist. So she is it's almost like a pharaoh's tomb that they build them bury them with all of their
Stuff.
all of their accoutrements, all of their affectations. And she is aging. She's getting to the end of her life. So it's like she wants this.
Oh, and whenever the filmmakers start focusing a little too much on little Edie, she starts fucking singing.
She does, and she puts on the hat. She puts on this big floppy hat as if it's her costume now for her stage, her tiny little stage of her bed in what's left of her kingdom. And although, her singing is no better than little Edie's. And
neither one of them are exactly opera stars. Like, nobody is appearing in the remake of Repo here, okay?
Little Edie...
Sarah Brightman, you were not.
Little Edie, Big Edie was a singer at one point. I don't know if Little Edie was.
No, because she never tried anything.
Big Edie, she's almost, she's like if Baby Jane was a Kennedy in a lot of ways. She's still...
No, that's yeah. That's accurate. But there is absolutely no Blanche.
No what?
Blanche.
No Blanche. No.
Blanche.
It's two Baby Janes.
It's like Baby Jane and then
it's the baby's Jane.
Baby Jane. Baby Jane's baby. It's Baby Jane and Baby Jane's baby.
Big Jane and Little Jane. Mama Jane and Baby Jane. And the room that they're in it's almost like a cell. They are bunkmates, and when they're arguing constantly throughout the movie, and there are a few times when the argument does get heated, and little Edie does get enraged. Although even that one, the arguments are they're almost like rehearsed. They've had these same arguments over and over again. They've been living in this tiny house together for, I think it's been 20 years or something at this point.
Y'all, you could slap the TLC logo on here and call it Hoarders.
Yes. It would be giving reality TV if it wasn't actually reality. It's more reality than reality TV.
It is, but I'm just literally comparing it to the way that show Hoarders is done and how they show everything and these people going about their lives. They don't try to help them. They don't try to offer them assistance. They just want to film their lunacy and broadcast it to the world so everyone can laugh at them and they can make money.
Not this. You mean in reality TV?
I have no reason to believe this was anything else.
I will contest.
I don't know how you can make a film like this under any circumstances and not call it at least a little bit exploitation. You made fucking money from it. It's exploitation.
I don't find it exploitive at all.
You made money from someone's misfortune.
Well, let's keep in mind that even though the house was in great disrepair, they go to great lengths to not show the worst of this house. You never see the bags of cat shit at
That's
all.
because TLC hadn't dropped Hoarders yet. If they made this today, about
why are we
people
talking about
today,
TLC? This is
because they changed the framework. This was made in 1995. The graphic nature of the way people like this truly lived wouldn't come to light for another 10 years. And as such, if this were to be made today, yeah, all that graphic detail would be shown. Yeah,
there are a lot of takes. They would today. Yes, it definitely would. But it wouldn't be.
It wasn't to protect them. It was to protect the audience.
No, this was for them, because the focus of the movie is on these two women and their dynamic. And there's a reason that Little Edie's a queer icon, because despite their surroundings, they never drop their posh attitude. They have a dinner of like sandwiches that they present like they're having like a dinner party.
I'm really struggling to feel empathy for Big Edie at all.
It's tough.
You did this to yourself.
It's tough.
And don't talk to me about women's rights and whatnot. Bitch, you came from money.
Like I said, she's a remnant from those old times.
And then you did this to your daughter, who I at least can empathize with, because I can literally put myself in her shoes. But at the same time, just like I had to do at 56 years old, why in 1995, why have you not stood up for yourself?
75.
That's when this was filmed?
75. Yeah.
I thought you said 95.
No, you thought it was 95? Oh my goodness.
You said 95. You said it was filmed in 95.
No, not during this. I don't think I would make that mistake.
Because I even said I would have had to have watched it at least 13 if it came out in 95.
I thought you watched it in 1995.
Oh, it doesn't matter though. Point being, okay, so then, the 70s, things are changing. At any point in time, like, quite honestly, Manson's cult might have been a better deal for you.
Than this house?
Yeah. I mean, don't join the group of people who are about to go kill people, and you'll come out fine.
That you'd have your murder-suicide.
No, because think about all the people in the Manson family that were not part of any of that murder nonsense.
There for the sex. They were just there for the.
And you can't name one today. You can only name me the ones that were in prison.
Well, yeah, they got all the attention.
And there were boatloads more.
You dressed for battle, Edie.
Mother's telling Marjorie how spoiled I am, how terrible I am. And Marjorie knew my father and my uncle. Mother's giving her all this SHIT, so I went and told some things about the family. But you see, in dealing with me, the relatives didn't know that they were dealing with a staunch character. And I tell you, if there's anything worse than a staunch woman, STAUNCH. There's nothing worse, I'm telling you. They don't weaken, no matter what. But they didn't know that. Well, how would they to know? You know, my father had made up his mind about what Farmington produced, what the Sacred Heart Convent produced. I don't think he was so down on the Spence School. But he certainly was down on Farmington. I don't know why. Farmington was a junior college. You could choose what you wanted to study. Perhaps that was what made my father dislike it so, that I could choose. But I chose what I thought he'd want me to choose. You know, English literature and Oriental philosophies and I always took French, but nothing ever happened there. I can read and write in French, but I can't speak it. I had years and years and years of French.
There were. But one of the takes is about this movie being exploitive. I personally don't see it that way. One of the things I've always loved about the movie is that they don't dictate how you see the Edies. They let them have their space. They filmed for 6 weeks, and I would love to see some of the footage. There is some of the footage. There's a documentary called Last Summer. I got a link to it. But it's very much them. I don't find it exploitive. Like I said, they went to great. Even there's a scene where Big Edie is sort of stretching her arms, and they pan the camera up in order not to show her sort of.
No,
like,
and I get that. It's respectful in that manner. It's definitely respectful to the feminine. I'll give you that. But they understand what Little Edie is, okay? And they strategically place men around her.
One man. I mean, and the filmmakers.
Yeah, and it's just the way that it's done. It's like that, you know how she is, and you're going to kind of deliberately position things to be a certain way to get a specific response.
I mean, if the argument is that they sort of
we also have no
elicited,
idea,
like they put them in place to have, they sort of, well, what should I say? They urge the response that maybe they wanted. I'm not so sure. I don't know, because this is their daily life. Jerry does show up every day.
It is their daily life. Absolutely agree with that. But there's so many things happening in between takes that you're not seeing. And some of that will be basic instruction of what they're about to start doing, because you have to give people advance warning as to what, you're going to do. But you don't know what kind of prompting is being said. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this subject next. Like, I don't believe that they just... I don't believe that they're just randomly going about their day perfectly normally, and then somebody picks up a camera and all of a sudden...
With one exception, I have always seen this as the Beales running the show. They have let the filmmakers in, and because they're showing mom's old pictures. They're showing.
Why?
Well, I think that just showcases who they are. It's like they're theatrical. They're taking this. They let them have the stage in the movie. They let them sing because that's what they want to do.
Like, in a lot of ways, it's almost the exact opposite of Rosemary Kennedy. Like, they locked her away, hush, hush, not to be spoken of again. And she never really was. And so this is different. Like, they don't really have this attitude of the wealthy are not theatrical. There's not that sense of propriety here, unless it's just out the window.
They probably have had it. I mean,
I'm sure little Edie would have been raised that way.
She was, because they sent her to many schools. She learned French for years.
But by this point, Big Edie is like so old and done that sense of propriety is just out the fucking window.
No, all she has left is her daughter.
Like, this woman doesn't even have any dignity left.
I mean, there's something to say about anyone who's willing to live in these conditions. Hoarders are hoarders because of either some kind of trauma had triggered it, or they just...
Well, yeah, it's a choice that you make, consciously or not. People, even poor people, don't necessarily live... That's where the classification always came from. People who lived like this were poor.
No, I'm poor, and my house
people
is very clean.
Who lived immaculately were wealthy. And that has just been a misconception forever.
Yeah, the same one is saying that, like, if you're rich, you must be smart.
Right.
Which is absolutely not the case.
Right.
I mean, even if you're educated, you may not be smart.
Yeah. I always say I am one of the most intelligent people I have ever met, and I am also dumber than a box of goddamn rocks.
Oh, same thing as me. I'm
dumb as shit.
I can't decide if I'm the dumbest smart person or the smartest dumb person.
I am one of the most intelligent people that I know, and I am also dumb as shit.
Mm-hmm.
That is how I explain it.
I know a lot of stuff, but I also don't know shit about fuck.
Our little Three Stooges act over here tells you exactly how fucking dumb I am.
We weren't even high when that
Nope.
happened.
I'm always high, though, to be fair.
To be fair. But
maybe I wasn't high enough. That was the problem.
That's probably
I was in my walking high state.
Like I said, I always felt that the Beales were running the show, and but also, if they did see in these people this dynamic, this incredible codependency, this power play between the two, I mean, put it on film. You and I got, between seeing it before in the past and seeing it now, we got, a lot of insight from it, and it hit really home. So, I mean, I think it's invaluable.
I agree. From an academic standpoint, I agree that this is one that might well be imperative to helping take that step of those who are in the process of breaking that generational trauma. Because this is one of those things that they do with that generational trauma, is that for multiple generations, we are taught that it is our responsibility to take care of our ailing parents. A responsibility, our obligation. Okay, we are not taught to do this because we love them and because we want them to have these wonderful late years because they gave us such wonderful early years. We are taught that it is our obligation, no matter what we think, feel, or where we even are. Like they were taught that if you were a leading neurosurgeon in the middle of California and your ailing mother was sick back in New York, you quit your job and flew and took care of her. That was what was expected, no matter what your relationship with her was like. Mm-hmm. And so I think that this does go a long way in because when you can look at this and laugh at the absurdity of it, you have to look back at your own generational trauma and laugh at the absurdity of it.
I am always laughing.
And when you laugh
the absurdity of tragedy.
The absurdity of that trauma, because you're comparing it to the absurdity of someone else's, and not saying like, oh, mine's better or hers is worse or anything, but just realizing when you went through something so parallel, how absurd it is to cling to it. Like, do you want to live like them? No, you don't. Then let go of that generational trauma. Is it easy? No, it's not. We break those steps, or you end up little Edie,
a staunch character. I think too that's symbolic.
And she's constantly promoting herself as this strong, capable woman. I don't need to be here with my mother.
And at the same time,
but
she
then on the flip
yearns
side,
for love. She yearns for a husband. Although she does proclaim herself to be this staunch.
Like the family don't know what they got with me.
Right.
Yeah, they do.
They didn't know they were
Trust
dealing
me.
with a staunch character.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's, she was constantly on the edge. I was just about to break through. If I had this man, if I had all of these. So
if.
It goes without saying that, little Edie is just as sort of dealing with her own shortcomings in the same way that her mother is.
She's justifying it. She's justifying it the same way I justified it. If I made it big, doing the thing, and then this happened and mother got sick and I had to go and take care of her, it would hurt more to give up. It would hurt so much more to give up all of these dreams that I've achieved, the accolades, the clout that I've built, the friends that I have made, the contacts, the experiences, than it would be if I didn't even try to reach that level.
I don't know if little Edie came with all the accolades. I mean, I'm not sure what she was doing before this.
Whether or not she would have made it at anything. I mean, look at her. She could have made something.
She was gorgeous.
She could have made herself something.
She's not bad for 56.
Either. I mean, you don't have a lot of options for women at the time she was growing up with that body, with that face. Her job was to become a wife.
That's to a Libra man. I mean, like I said, she yearned for love.
But she could have modeled, and she could have. And wasn't this World War II? Like, wouldn't she have been really young in World War II?
Well, her father left.
She could have been a USO girl.
Her father divorced his mother, a Mexican divorce, in 1946.
I don't know how old little Edie was then, though.
Well, she was 56 and 75, so she was probably. I guess she was like 26.
So okay, yeah, she could have easily been like a USO girl for the war. I mean, she could have had that type of career. How many women? There were a lot of them that actually had entertainment career jobs during the war, and that's what they did. It was their patriotic contribution.
Well, I mean,
Marilyn even did it.
She describes also how her father treated her. She wanted to work. She worked for her father, and if she was 5 minutes late, he would admonish her. He told her to take off the lipstick, take off the shoes, put your hair down. So between that and her mother, there's no doubt she had to have some kind of inferiority complex that held her back, or fear of success that I can relate to myself.
It strikes me that her father would have preferred that he have all boys.
Sure. And her mother clearly loved the boys better.
And that's because boys go away. Boys get married and get absorbed into their wife's family. Mm-hmm. And here she would have not only lost her daughter, but she would have then had to take on her daughter's family and potentially grandkids and all that fun stuff. And you'd think you'd want that. You'd think that you would want to ensure it's like the heir and the spare. Like, I'm going to need somebody to take care of me when I'm old, so I'm going to have a baby. And maybe a couple of them just to make sure that there's at least one to take care of me. And then they need to have babies just in case something happens to them before, but after, so I can't have more babies.
I don't know where Edie fell in the birth line. I get the idea that she's the youngest. I don't know. She does not have oldest daughter syndrome, unless
Neither
in
did
the
a
way
lot.
that she takes care of her mother.
Neither did a lot. No, that's the only daughter.
Well, if you're the only daughter, then you're also the oldest daughter.
Yeah, and that also means that it would become your obligation because you're not the one doing anything with your life. Even if you did do something with your life, eventually you would get married and have kids, leaving you to be available to take care of the parents.
I have a friend who's an only child, and her parents are getting older, and I'm like, and she's like, okay, when I was growing up, there was 2 of them and 1 of me, and now there's 1 of me and 2 of them. What is this bullshit Ponzi scheme that I got myself into?
Yeah.
No, it's a shame. Oh, by the way, we have several shots of little Edie just lying on the deck the way they slept in Evil Tunes.
You know what? I used to lay out on my back deck and watching something like that.
I lay on the floor all the time. It's kind of my favorite place to lay down.
It's just, right there in that sun, and it's like being a cat in the sun.
And Edie says a few times, like, I just need 4 days on the beach, and the beach is 50 feet away.
Yeah, like just walk down the path and you're there, because she even goes swimming in the beach at one point.
She does go swimming in the beach. She models, again, with her style, these bathing suits that were probably popular in like 1945 or something like that.
So there's this one scene actually where she's like clipping her clothes together.
She's wearing a towel, yeah, as a turban. Little Edie wears hair covers all the time. I think her hair was thinning at the time, so
I'm just commenting on like her entire look, because she just like pieces everything together. It's mostly skirts, tops, and then that hair covering. But while Big Edie still wears like clothes, like that's obviously a dress, Little Edie builds her own stuff.
She does, and I think that's to Little Edie's credit. I mean, she is Scarlett O'Hara in the curtains all the time.
Kinda.
And don't forget, if you didn't know this, you can wear a skirt and then use it as a cape. At one point,
yes.
A skirt that she's wearing upside down.
But she likes to wear that it was a great costume idea.
Well, Al, you're still. Mother says you're very cute. Brooks, everything looks wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. This is the best thing to wear for the day. You understand?
Yeah.
Because I don't like women in skirts. And the best thing is to wear pantyhose or some pants under a short skirt, I think. Then you have the pants under the skirt. And then you can pull the stockings up over the pants underneath the skirt. Mm-hmm. And you can always take off the skirt and use it as a cape. So I think this is the best costume for the day.
Okay.
I have to think these things up, you know. Mother wanted me to come out in a kimono, so we had quite a fight. So what did you do? Photograph Brooks cutting right down here?
She's about to go on stage, and she calls it a costume.
Because it is. I mean, to her, this is a chance to be in the big time. This is like, of course it. I mean, I'm not saying this is not them by any means. I'm simply saying when the camera's on, you act different.
Well, that is also the attitude, and the
and we don't know, like, what were they promised? Like, were they promised money to help fix the place up? Were they promised like a percentage? In which case, how do we make it go big?
I don't know, because I don't think the Maysles had any money, because the money they had sunk into the original documentary and it got canceled. So I don't think they really had much to offer except just a chance for them to be showcased.
Right. This is your chance to come out the world and tell your side of the story and be seen how you want to be seen.
Sure.
Want to be seen.
But then there is an element of the real them and their dynamic that can't be suppressed. It's always
I agree.
there. This is, very much a movie about. So what I was going to say is that there is an underlying theme of denial in the movie. You have to admit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Denial of everything.
I wouldn't say it's underlying though. Like it's kind of there.
There is more denial than the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, probably.
Let's be honest. Denial of how they're living, denial of their dynamic, denial of their history, denial of where they would be if only, and denial of their future, denial of what Jerry's.
There is more denial in this movie than in our most recent presidential impeachment trial.
You talk about having a fantasy. Anyway,
I'm not naming names. I ain't stupid.
So. But I don't know. I do like not to mention, like I said, there were 6 weeks of footage.
So where does, I know I'm totally interrupting you, but I have a question. where does their money come from? Like, where are
That's
they getting?
a good question
Because they're obviously getting something. They just wrote homie a freaking check for like $21.
Wrote a check, and she mentioned like when you're being taken, or when she's saying you're being taken care of, or something like that. Supported.
Yes.
You're being supported. So it's hard to say. I don't think. Well, they don't mention the movie. I couldn't find any information about it, and the filmmakers don't reveal it if they knew. I think because if there was something like if they were on welfare or something like that, they weren't going to admit it.
That would have been easy to find in record, so that's public record.
I don't know who's going to dig for that.
I mean, the filmmakers would have.
Listen, when you're mentally putting the yarn and photographs together to dig in the Epstein hole, maybe you'll find it out.
Bet.
You know, if you can.
There might be a follow-up newsletter. I mean, we'll see what all I can find between now and next week when it goes out.
I don't know.
The newsletter for every one of our podcasts launches a week after the podcast launches. So this particular podcast will be released here on a week from today, on Wednesday. And the newsletter will be out a week from after that. So look for that, guys. Get signed up. The link is in the description. You can also find it all over both of our Instagram pages. And get signed up for that newsletter, because this one, I think I might rabbit-hole the hell out of it.
I'll look forward to it. I put a lot. There's going to be a lot of good links too.
Oh yeah, Cozy has contributed links for the first time.
I know, right? I'm excited. Also, there's a link to watch the movie free on YouTube, so there's no excuse not to watch this great.
There
movie.
is also a really great link to an indie film my daughter found.
Yes, that one. I won't say what it is. Let it be a surprise. Oh,
but it is on YouTube, so I will include that.
Also, we can link this in YouTube too, because it's also on there. If you're a fan of, I'm a huge fan of Bill Hader, and also the other guy in the show is documentary now, which is a brilliant Fred Armisen, brilliant show. That the first episode was a parody of Grey Gardens. I think it was called like Sandy Shores or something, and Bill Hader plays Little Edie, and it's a parody, but it's not like a satire of it. They do it so perfectly. It's almost like a tribute to this. And Fred Armisen puts on the big hat. He sings. At one point, Bill Hader just falls through the floor.
Oh God!
And then comes back up. It links in the newsletter. Watch it. You'll love it.
So I'm kind of going backwards for a second in this film as to what they're about to eat, because I could swear
it was cat
she
food.
Says pate.
It's pate. It's liver pate that she tells her.
Where the fuck are you affording liver pate?
Well, Big Edie mentions, I don't know if it's accurate, that she had a $171 grocery bill on ice cream alone.
Right. Again, where are they getting their money?
I don't know. I never knew. Maybe it's from the Onassis. Maybe it's from somebody in their family. I mean, they're being supported. Perhaps they are getting an allowance.
From a legal standpoint, there may well have been a trust from the Beales.
That's very likely.
That doles out a certain percentage for her as the spouse until she dies. She also was the Social Security established yet in the 70s?
Yes.
So she might well be collecting a little bit of that. And
well,
definitely
her
husband.
She ever paid in.
No, she'd be collecting her husband's though.
He might have been dead by now. And she was married, I guess, for over 20 years, so that makes you entitled to collect it.
Yep. So.
Yeah, they're eating liver pate on crackers.
But Big Edie doesn't like crackers, remember? You know that.
Which is wild. I mean,
so what was she going to do? What was she expecting little Edie to do with that pate?
She's just eating it. She's just eating it straight. They have a whole. I didn't know there were mini fridges at this time, but they've got a mini fridge. They're in a dorm, basically. They've got the mini fridge. They've got their groceries. They've got their cats. They cook corn.
Yes, at one point they have this big dinner party.
I love the corn. They bring a hot plate, I guess, and they boil a pot of water and cook some corn.
You know, at one point they have like a dinner party.
They have a dinner party. It's Big Edie's birthday.
Yes, that's what it is.
She comes down the stairs for the only time we see in the film.
That's the only time I ever saw her standing.
Well, she gets up off the patio to go inside. She's hunched over like a Skeksis. And they have, and like I mentioned before, they have this little dinner party with a couple of friends, and it's Big Edie's 79th birthday. And what did little Edie say that drove home for you?
Oh my God.
To Edith.
I hope you live to be 80.
And it's her 79th birthday. Which
I hope you live to be at least 80.
At least 80, which was a joke, quote unquote, but let's be honest.
I almost hit the floor. I almost hit the floor.
So, and at the dinner party, you can see they serve it. She serves it up as if she is, entertaining a duke or Paul Getty. They pour the champagne or the wine into
the hallmark
cups.
Of aristocracy is responsibility.
There it is.
And that just shuts
Boom.
Big Edie right up.
Big Edie it's just the one time she's quiet in the entire film.
She does too. She's just like,
yeah, you can see
all air sucked out of the room.
Like I said, the arguments have been played over and over again, just like those records that have been.
It looked like Big Edie hadn't been hit with that one before, though.
I'm going to say, there are some moments that I think are fresh. That was definitely one of them.
I mean, I get the place they've argued. I get the idea that they've argued that same argument before, but that was the first time little Edie came out with that little gem.
Either that or she was embarrassed that she pulled that out in front of the cameras, because they are always aware that they're in front of the cameras. I think that's an essential element of this movie. It's not like they had hidden cameras. This is what they were willing to show.
Oh, this is not reality in TV in the sense of ignore the cameras and just proceed.
No. They talk directly to the cameras all the time, which again I think is essential to the story that they're telling. See, here's the shot of Big Edie stretching, and you can see where they deliberately put the camera up just to for her.
Well, yeah, it looks like she's naked in bed, and then she pulls the blanket up around her a little bit.
We'll do a boob count for most movies, and unfortunately,
there is one good boob shot here, but I really don't want to claim it because it is Big Edie. And I'm pretty sure it was entirely shot on accident with framing, and there was no way to properly cut it out.
It was, because there's that same scene. She wants to sit down, but she's concerned because her bathing suit doesn't have a back. So they turn the camera to the mirror, and they're just filming themselves, and you can see, the Maysles with their camera and microphones.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that they. The only argument I'm going to make about the concept of exploitation is if you made money, yeah.
I mean. There's that, I guess. I mean, you got to put your film out and you got to recoup. I mean, they spent 6 weeks of their lives.
That's what I mean. If you made money. So if you spent $100,000 to make this and you made $100,000 in that process, I really don't see where we can claim exploitation.
I mean, I don't
because you have to spend a certain amount in order to make a certain amount back. And I get that and I respect that. It's when it comes later, this shit is still making money for people who are dead.
It was not the blockbuster like other movies. Even we watched a lot of movies here that
But where does it go? If I buy this movie on DVD from greygardens.com, where does that money go?
I have no idea. I mean, the movie has more of a cult following and a cultural significance than it does as a box office anything. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure it was released with limited release, but its life exists much after it for its, again, there is a cult following, but there's also an intellectual following of the movie. It's got a Criterion release. It's I think it's the 9th best documentary of all time, according to the list that I forgot. So
then why
it's not so much a product as it is
why didn't it get
piece.
The acclaim when it was first dropped, considering its celebrity and its political connections?
I think it did, and we'll talk about later that it did have an impact on their lives, especially little Edie.
No, not their lives, the impact of the lives of the famous people they're attached to.
I don't think it had any impact in there. I mean, obviously they're not interacted with.
She made me leave the Barbizon. For the record, guys, the Barbizon
wasn't that a modeling school?
Yeah.
I remember. You remember the ads? It was like, do you want to be a model or just look like one?
Yeah.
So it became like this sort of like fly by night
You could pay
training school? Was it always like
you
that?
could drop like $1,500 and they would train you to be a model and hook you up with X, Y, and Z.
But at one time, it was like a legit.
Yeah, no, that
like
money
school.
did get you certain things, and they did train you and they did stuff.
It was French, wasn't it?
I think so, but the output didn't exist.
And what do you mean, the output of?
You gave your money. It was very Scientology. You gave your money for all these classes, but the jobs never materialized.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Because
It's like,
the actual connections were not there for the people who were supposed to be put in place. So like, I know Bob, and Bob can help you
Right.
with your art, but I don't really know Bob. And if you give me
Well-
$1,000, I'll get Bob to help you.
especially if you're going to the Barbizon of Akron, Ohio. You know, we had one, you know, here in St. Louis,
Yes.
which is St. Louis is a great city, but not, you know, model
Correct.
career central.
Correct. No, at once upon a time, especially back when little Edie was young, she was in the right place though. She was in New York.
Sure.
That doesn't make Barbizon any more reputable being in New York.
I don't know if it, I mean, like 1975 Barbizon. I saw the commercials, and well, you know, it wasn't too damn long. It was maybe 10 years after.
It
let's
was
be honest.
always.
Well, she wasn't there in 1975. She was probably there in 1945.
Look up the history of Barbizon.
You in New York?
Are you kidding?
No.
I was discovered by Mr. Gordon. He was a friend of Mrs.
Well, what is it?
What was that woman's
people
name?
discover
What
me
was
every
Ruby
time I go
Chapman's-
out, but I don't
What was
think
this was
I don't
very
think anything of
serious.
it.
He went to pieces. Mr. Max Gordon went out
Oh,
this morning.
not Max Gordon. He never went to pieces in his life. He did not. A very
Now,
highly
what was the
intelligent
woman's
man.
name? She gave me the letter. Mrs. Hitchcock.
I
She was
can't go
Ruby
back to
Chapman's
ancient history.
partner.
How can you remember so long? Now I'll have to get
They
drunk,
gave me
Edie.
the letter to
I'll
Max
have to
Gordon.
start drinking. I can't take it. She'll make a drunkard out of her mother.
What crackers do you want? We'll take these. Do you want? They're very good. Do you want these?
I don't like crackers, you know that. Just put a lemon on it, little lemon.
Don't
Put
you
that
know who
lemon
Max Gordon is? He's a famous producer. You've heard of him, haven't you? Discovered Judy Holliday, or Holiday. He discovered Judy Holliday. He said I was much funnier.
on it. You haven't been funny today, boy. You're lacking in humor. It's how you are when you grow older.
I needed training. Where was I to get the training?
You start when you're 12. I had mine when I was 12.
This crack is for the photographer. Tell me what I should have done.
Here, would you put this away, please, Edie?
I should have immediately
Put it
tried
where
to
it
get into
gets frozen.
something.
So it gets frozen, will you?
David,
Got
instead
it.
of coming home, I should have tried to get into something. Is that it? Do you think I should have gotten
David,
in?
you think you and you
Nightclub
and Al
work,
should have
David,
told me you need to
darling.
lose weight. You've been in.
Do you think I should have gotten into nightclub work?
You can't.
And what does your mother think?
I had
My father was
everything
alive.
picked out.
That was it.
I
My
was
father
going
was
around-
alive.
I was going around with a
That
very-
my father was alive.
You want to hear what I
Mr.
have
Beale
to
would
say?
have had me committed.
School and I were Edie every day to go to Traphagen. She could do anything. She could learn toe dancing. She could learn radio. She could learn all sorts of stage dancing.
Why would
She
I
could
do this?
but the things we told you to go to Bendel's and
I couldn't go with my mother sitting here,
model
David.
earrings.
I
Your head
couldn't
was
go
so
with my
beautiful.
mother sitting here.
And you were so gorgeous in hats, and you had such a beautiful face, and we always adored you. And you said, "Why she could do hats, and she had gorgeous feet." And Mr. Beale always made her wear a certain kind of shoe when she was a little girl, orthopedic shoe. And she
I
could
take responsibility for you, mother.
I was taken care of for 25 years.
The hallmark of aristocracy is responsibility. Is that it?
Probably because society treated them the way Big Edie treats her daughter by telling her she's fat,
So
telling her she needs to lose weight, and then eating ice cream in front of her, much like that scene in Deep End, with contempt, and she even says, "You want some of this ice cream, don't you?" You know, and then we have a scene where little Edie goes out to the patio and weighs herself, looking at the number with binoculars, and is just appalled that she weighs 145 pounds, which today is not that much. Especially Edie is pretty tall for a lady, so she's probably normal weight.
I mean,
But she's been living with this her entire life.
so again, with the whole concept of generational trauma, looks like so many different things. My eyes are going insane. But generational trauma looks like many, many things. And a lot of women believed that their daughters, you know, they raised their daughters in the same way that they were raised. And that was, your value is in the way that you look. Mm. And Big Edie is constantly talking about how little Edie let herself go.
And when she looks at old pictures of herself, she says, you should look like that now.
Yes.
Well, actually, no. 40 years older.
When they're flipping through and they're looking at this one and she's absolutely gorgeous, and Big Edie says, like, how old were you there? She goes, 24. She goes, oh, you're awfully young looking for 24. I didn't realize you were so old there.
And you're foolish.
I think back to where I was at 24. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of glad I'm not there now.
Oh, there's a store called Forever 21. It sounds awful.
I used to love their clothes.
Oh, yeah. The women in my family adored it.
It's great for...
Constantly buying that crap.
It was
now we
great
have
for...
Shein. So Shein, if you buy from Shein, that's Forever 21 clothes.
Yeah, I don't shop from there.
They're out in the woods.
Little Edie would never shop from Shein.
Ugh, are you kidding me? That is gauche. Gaudy.
It would never happen, not in a million years. Though I think little Edie would love the idea of being able to order clothes online and having them dropped off her house.
You know, I think
she would fucking love it.
And Big Edie could buy things from her bed.
They would love it. Like if only they were around like in the 90s instead and could have the .com boom.
Little Edie would be an influencer.
Oh my God.
No doubt.
Oh yeah. Oh
she
yeah.
Would.
She'd be going viral left and right.
I would hope she'd have 1 million followers.
She'd be very Britney Spears.
She would. Oh.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
She just couldn't find the knives in all that mess.
They were prop knives, okay?
Sure. Okay. I believe it.
I do. I don't think
no, for real. I do believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not, that off anymore.
Well, it's not so much about being off.
She's not that reckless, we'll say.
I don't think she's talented enough to do what she did with the knives without them being craft knives and not hurting herself. That's all I'm saying.
Leave Britney alone.
I mean, she's talented as fuck. Just, you lose some talent when you become that unhinged. I speak from experience. Mm. Like, you no longer have that skill to maintain the talent. It's like talent or not killing people.
So can I measure my hinge on my talent? So if I'm holding on to my talent, I'm still clinging on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Well.
I'll buy it. You know what? Also, do you notice that
she's making corn on the cob in a bedside plate? Bed. Yep, I did notice.
It is a marvel that this house didn't burn down. You know what? I wonder if this is a different edit of this movie, because I swear that there is a scene where she talks about the firefighters who came to the house, and she says they had nerves of steel. Nerves of steel. So I didn't see it in this movie. So perhaps it's a different edit, because she's also, here we have her.
She's feeding her babies. And there's a mysterious book. Jerry has been taking the books and putting them upstairs.
Yeah.
It has to be Jerry.
Also, he's been passing the books out the window to
someone.
And, this goes along with that Jerry is moving in because he gave them a washing machine.
From a house that they were redoing, and they were just going to throw it away.
Yeah, not because they needed a washing machine.
Right.
Then she's lamenting the condition of the house.
She's as bad as fucking Roxanne, not being able to open shit.
Seeing her struggle with this box of Purita was...
I really wanted to help her.
And not to mention, she's got her mother screaming in the... This is the chaos in just in this moment. She is finding a book that has mysteriously been moved. Her mother is yelling orders from her in the background. She is feeding the raccoons as she laments the condition of this attic that she's in.
While on film.
While being filmed.
During her mother's birthday party.
This is before the birthday party.
No, it was actually after, because she was cooking the corn just a second ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been watching the movie. Also, the last scene of the was missing of the raccoon eating the bread with a hole in it.
He's eating the bread with a hole in it right now.
There is a hole, but it was a more perfect hole.
We're just being really all kinds of picky about this tonight.
I am. I'm sorry. This movie's so near and dear to me, as I'll get into later. But I was always saying, so
Get into it now. We're already in an hour and 16 minutes.
okay, there's a bit more to talk about that I'll get into. But I wanted to say, so we've established that Big Edie favored her sons. They were angels. Little Edie can do no right. But
Never could.
I get the impression that the way she is with Jerry, with the marble fawn, she takes her frustrations out on Jerry quite a bit. I can't stand that kid.
Jerry
I can't live
symbolizes
here.
something that she will never have, and that is the ability to come and go.
Jerry is free. Very, yeah.
Not just free to live his life, not just free to have his own world, not just free but to come and go from that house.
Very good point.
Just from that house.
Very good point. And she resents him for that fact, obviously.
She's probably going to resent the filmmakers when they leave too.
Most likely. So Big Edie did die. She did live to be at least 80. She lived for
Did she? Good.
4 more years. And when she died, little Edie did move to New York in a rat hole in the Upper East Side.
She wanted to live in a rat hole on 10th Avenue.
Yeah, you know those.
And I lost it. And Cozy looked at me, he's like, 10th Avenue? I was like, I know it's on the Upper East Side.
I'm not familiar with the geography of New York. I'm not as metropolitan as Leo is.
Gossip Girl, my friends. Gossip
okay.
Girl. 6 years of Gossip Girl will do that to you.
You learned the.
Kiki could have told you that.
Should have asked her. So she moved to New York, 1979, and she did do acts and appearances in cabarets. That
would suit her.
And mostly in front of gay audiences.
That would suit her.
And that was the beginning of her becoming this queer icon that she was. But she was a little discouraged because she didn't get great reviews. They were pretty critical of her, even though the audiences... It was like a Rotten Tomatoes, high audience score, low critic score, which usually means it's a good movie. So, I mean, imagine seeing little Edie just unleashed on the stage, absorbing the spotlight, eating it up.
She got to be herself.
Free.
Free.
She had to be. That could have been her happiest she'd ever been.
And she, by that age, I don't want to say you're never going to amount to anything because that's absolutely not true, but you're never going to accomplish what you could have if you'd have been free to do so when you were in your prime.
But she did accomplish a lot of being literally iconic.
That's amazing.
Through this, I will never.
Is she still fucking nuts?
Of course, she's still nuts, and it's alluded to who. I mean, I said she probably had undiagnosed bipolar.
That's not bipolar.
I mean, at least, but they had undiagnosed a lot of things.
That is
maybe
not
borderline. I don't know. I don't want to get it. I don't want to get into diagnosing.
Nope.
What would you call it?
Straight up generational trauma.
There's a lot of trauma.
Probably some ADHD. I see loads of anxiety. That's Kiki. That is Kiki, but with generational trauma.
There, but for the grace of God, go she.
That is how Kiki would behave if I put on her what my mother put on me.
Surrounded with cats.
Complete chaos.
Well, like we mentioned, a lot of hoarders are triggered by trauma of some kind.
It would be complete chaos.
Yeah. I mean, as obvious, your surroundings almost always reflect the state of your mind and the state of your sanity.
I really don't want to know what this loft says about mine.
Well, it's not bad. Looks pretty good. That's very cozy.
I mean, it's
very comfy.
It's safe and it's clean and it's tidy, but it's weird.
It is. It's a little weird. It's a fortress. Oh, here comes your part. I think this is where she mentions it. We don't need to get back into it again. Just I'll put the I'll put the screenshot here. No, it's not. It was during her birthday party.
I think so.
I take it back.
I can't remember what the context was now, but she was talking about she knew everybody and she had contacts everywhere, and she listed some other names that I knew as well from history, like big rich people. See, here's where she's building her own outfit.
She's putting together, like I said, it's Scarlett O'Hara with the curtains. I don't know if that's a tablecloth. No, it's a dress, but she's altering it in a lot of ways. Again, something that she has control over is is how she presents herself, her costumes.
And the more ridiculous she can make them, the more her mother's probably not going to approve, but also isn't going to say anything to her because what can she say?
But I do love that she always, she's in gnome mode here. She always accentuates her head cover with what is probably a very expensive brooch. Brooch?
Yeah, it might be. I've also noticed she wears it in different spots.
She does. It's sometimes on the top of her head.
Yeah, the first time I saw it up there, I thought it was like ears or something.
Mm-hmm. The filming also meant we mentioned reality TV. This was started kind of like a genre called direct cinema, which is just another way to say cinema verite that started in France in the 50s. There was another movie around this time. I can't say what it was. It's called like Sploxa Moxa Pia Badosha Blocka.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Was one of the first direct cinema films. It was just a slice of life. I think there was some protests going on. Anyway, it's not important.
So did she keep her head covered during cabarets?
I bet she did. I mean, on one hand, it could be her modesty. On the other hand, this is what she's known for. So why not present herself as...
Well, honestly, that was my first thought, but then they're Catholic and there's no hair covering Catholicism.
No, you don't. I mean, that's not required. I think she did it out of
No,
modesty.
they wear veils for certain things and that's it.
Yeah. No, I don't think it had anything, even though what she loved the most was the Catholic Church, singing.
Though she was lamenting something about her hair.
She said her hair will grow back. Yeah, her hair was thinning, and she, always wore a head cover out of modesty. So it had nothing to do with religion. They listened to a priest's sermon. I don't know if it was a priest. It was doctor something. It was really interesting to hear this radio program from the 70s that we don't have anymore. My mother would occasionally watch Mass on TV when she couldn't get to church.
Margie's very worried.
Right, Mom.
She says she can't take any
I live here.
She can't have any pictures taken of herself. She promised. It's in a contract that she will never appear.
You mean there are 2 divorces for
Yes,
Venice?
she said she can't. It's all written with. She can
What
have
she
it.
own? RKO?
Your face is so ugly. Look at that. Woman's supposed to be pretty. Did you ever see such an ugly face? Oh, God. Thank God for Jerry. He smiles. He's beautiful. He stays beautiful. Oh, God. There you go. Well, once again, do you want a handkerchief?
Okay.
Well, it's too late now. All the germs are around the room, but I'll give you some part of this just to be sanitary.
Handheld footage. Oops. So after the filming, it was around 2 years later. No, I'm sorry. Big Edie died in 1977. So Big Edie lived to 81, which is at least 80.
At least 80.
Here I've got a little history of the house afterwards. So little Edie was going to sell the house. However, most people that wanted to buy it were going to destroy it. So she refused to sell it to anyone who wasn't going to keep the house or restore it.
Fair.
So in 1979, it was sold to a couple named Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn, who were reporters for the Washington Post and authors and writers. So they bought the house at the time for $220,000, which would be $1 million as it is now. And there's some articles about how they went through and restored the house. They counted 52 cats in the house.
Wow.
And they were, bags of cat feces, just things they never showed in the documentary. But it was extensive amount.
Well, they showed the one
damage.
cat shitting behind the painting, and
right.
Big Edie's like, oh, somebody ought to be able to do whatever they want. So, don't tell me that they just got up and cleaned that up afterwards.
No, most definitely not. The one sort of...
I can't imagine what that smelled like through filming.
That's the one thing you can't see in the movie is the smell. And if the cats are shitting everywhere and raccoons are in the house and there's probably spoiled food at some point, and
there is not enough rose water.
There was no working toilets before they fixed the house up to this condition. So it had to be pretty funky. There are accounts of the house sort of like being pretty foul. You wouldn't tell by the reaction. And they did upgrade. They did restore the house. You can see it. They sold it in 2017. Sally Quinn was a widow at that point. They sold it for $20 million.
Nice.
So they did pretty good investment and a historical home. It was bought by Liz Lang, who I think is
I know that name.
She's, I think, a designer, maybe?
That's Liz Claiborne.
I know. I've heard of that one. maybe she was a columnist. I don't remember. I could have easily written it down, and I didn't.
They just collect everything.
Little Edie is constantly
Decorating.
planning on decorating. She has a bird cage and a poster in her hand, and she's like, I always wanted to hang it here and put that up here, and then doesn't.
It's in this room for some reason. Here she's going to say, and then I was going to hang the birdcage right here.
Yeah, which it's
like
right there, and
this.
she just doesn't, which is
But I haven't gotten to that.
very much like her life, you know? Things I always wanted to do, and then you just don't do. I mean, I know how that is. There's so many things that I've intended to do and need to do, and just don't for some reason.
Yeah, but what else is she fucking doing?
Nothing. Taking care of her mother.
I mean, you and I say, oh, I'm going to do that when I have time to do that, whatever that is.
But we actually fill our time with a lot of...
But it's because we literally don't have time to do that. Like, if it was really a matter of, hey, Tony, you don't have to do anything else with your day at all, but please come hang this birdcage and poster.
Yeah. I mean...
I have that done in, like, within an hour of waking up.
Look, I've come here plenty of time and had to put a shelf together or hang a shelf or hang a net or fix whatever has to be assembled. And, like, boom, boom, it's done. Now we can get on with whatever we got to do. But it's a learned helplessness that is pretty prevalent in this movie.
To be fair, she's also had her mother telling her whole life that she's not going to amount to much anyway, except being her caretaker.
To this day. And you would think that being told constantly that you can't sing, even while you are singing, that she wouldn't sing. But of course she's going to sing because her mother hates it.
Oh, by this point, there was probably a period of time, probably for many years, where her mom would say something mean like that.
Yeah.
And she would just get silent.
Of course.
Oh, you can't sing. Silence.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not going to. So, until eventually one day she just went, well, oh well.
Absolutely
I'm going to sing out of spite. I've always said, and
Edie, I can't take it, Edie. I'll go right in the other room and I won't have any hot food or anything. Don't do it, Edie. I'll get so mad. Listen, will you stop me? I'm going in the other room. I'm singing it in American. I'll never see you again. I'm singing it in American. I don't care. You're not going to sing that song. Stop it, will you? Why not? Because I don't want to hear it. I'm your mother. Remember me? I stood for yours all these years. Come on. Well, my voice is beautiful and trained. It was beautifully trained, my voice. I never tried to attract men with it. I was just sad. Edie, stop it. I'm going to get up. Now, goodbye. Going right in the other room with the cats where I'll be happy. I'm not going to take it. I hope my bathing suit falls off. I hope it does. Something fell off just then. Get out of here. You don't make me mad. Get out. You're making me very angry. Go out. Go away. Stop that. Yeah, but they're going to stop it. Stop that silly nonsense. Quit it. I can't have any fun. Go away. You had enough fun all your life.
I never had a minute's fun, not a minute. I never had a minute's fun.
Go away. You don't look at it. You made a rotten crack.
coming down the stairs. And notice too, they made, like, the house looked nice for a second by how they framed the shot.
Well, that's because that stairwell isn't really that bad off.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
I see some exposed wiring, but that could be for any reason.
There's a few of that. Like, almost in some movies that we've watched, in Night of the Demons, in Deep End, in Evil Toons even, the house is a character itself. I don't get that from this movie so much. They're two huge characters that fill up the screen and eat the scenery too much. The house is just where they are. I mean, what do you think?
No, I do agree that the house is a character, but it ceased to be a character when the Beales ceased to live in it. This could not have been filmed anywhere else.
No.
Like, you could not have plucked them out and stuck them on a set and had the same dynamic and have it work.
No, I think that's an essential element of this. Again, I keep using that phrase.
So for the purpose of this, the character of the house is it does stand, but unfortunately, it's not one of those like other houses. Well, like the Bates Motel will stand the test of time. It will be the Bates Motel forever, and Grey Gardens will only remain Grey Gardens for as long as it is named Grey Gardens.
Very true. That's very true. Even now that the house is worth $20 million, it's not the house that it was here.
Correct.
because
it doesn't have that life of its own anymore that was fed into it by these two women.
If you plop the Edies into an actual palatial estate, it wouldn't be that. It would be very different.
It wouldn't matter if you took them out of this environment at all.
Exactly. I mean, that's what makes them these characters, is that despite
she
their
has her
surroundings,
79th year. 79th year. Okay, I thought she was gonna say her thing.
She says the thing. Here it comes. Dun dun dun. I'm gonna put that sound effect.
Sing it. Oh, here we go. Happy birthday. I sang.
I'm gonna say the cake looked pretty damn good.
Birthday.
I have been craving cake since we watched Repo.
Happy birthday, dear mother.
And I haven't got any.
You know what? Maybe I will pick up a cake for Friday.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Happy birthday to you.
And this fella and
I don't know who this guy is.
Daughter. I don't know, but the happiest thing he can say to her on her birthday is like, "Oh, the best thing is if you go deaf, blind, and then get cancer on your face."
Right. So you're completely struck.
What is this?
Deaf, blind, and dumb, essentially.
Dying.
What? And the cake, yes, it's just so beautiful.
The cake, I mean, like the cake is the one kind of tasty looking thing they eat in this movie.
I mean, I guess. And somebody's calling her, so we know the phone works.
This was a big deal to get a call on your birthday.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, imagine a time where you didn't have to you couldn't keep tabs on your friends. Like I have, there are friends who I talk to every day, and I have one friend who literally texts me every day to be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like, same thing I did yesterday at this time when you asked me. But then at this time you wouldn't know, like, haven't heard from Diane in a while. She could have died. I don't know. Maybe she'll call me on my birthday. If she doesn't, then I guess I'll send flowers.
That, but also there was a sense of people communicate with people today in today's world out of boredom. And yeah, we did that to an extent too on a local level, calling our friends and stuff. Mm-hmm. But when it was like your birthday or Christmas or a holiday and it was time to call grandma or whatever, like that was an event. You went out of your way to get the phone, to dial the numbers, to call grandma at a specific time when you knew grandma was available.
Do you remember having to call the phone long distance? So like my dad would like hurry us up, like keep it 10 minutes because it costs $1.50 a minute.
And now it's not as big of a deal. That's the other thing, is long distance calls did cost so much. You didn't call grandma every Monday night.
Mm-hmm. So think of the isolation that these two had in this house alone.
The only people they can call are their literal local neighbors, who I'll guarantee you they are not friends with.
No, this is the East Hamptons. I mean,
they've been ostracized a long time, and they are probably the oldest owners of a home.
That may be why that it took so long for them to take action. Like, no doubt the neighbors, if they had an HOA, I doubt they did, but there was probably meetings amongst the neighbors to be like, what are we going to do about this disaster? Like, they had to wait for it to get to a point to where they could, call the authorities and get it potentially condemned. I have
Epstein's address.
There you go.
I got it here.
All the electricians in East Hampton, none of which you've ever called. And I guess she's going to transfer Epstein's
she's got to update it. She's got to update his island now.
She got a notebook for her birthday in a little box.
Yeah, she's got to make sure that Epstein's island number is still correct. Or update it to the island. Maybe he just bought his island.
We've talked about Epstein too much in this episode.
I'm not the one that brought it up.
Why didn't you bring it up when David Carradine unalived himself?
Because she's the one that said she had Epstein's address. David Carradine did not admit to having Epstein's address in his little box.
She killed him.
You know that nobody is off limits when it comes to Epstein didn't kill himself.
This is very speculative at this point until we have some proof. We'll find out in the newsletter.
Spoiler alert. She has proof. Check the newsletter.
Same locations, same areas. Epstein was born in, what did I say, 1952?
Yeah. Can we mention the work that newspaper does in this movie? The cats are just walking along on newspaper. She puts newspaper. She's like Adam Sandler with the use of the newspaper.
Yeah.
And then when she has the party, she just very casually lays newspaper down.
Yes,
on the
chairs because somebody comments about how dirty they are. She's like, we're just gonna set this paper down.
I'll put the paper down on it. That is the thing. They have never apologized. They just it's like this is a life accepted. I mean, you have entered our home. This is our normal, how we live, and there's no keeping up appearances. There's no apology. They are who they are. That's again one of the things that makes her iconic through this thing. I don't think anyone unapologetic. Like I don't pity the Beales, and I mean
I do, but only in the sense of being women in the time they were women, having to go through what they had to go through.
I may feel,
but I struggle to feel anything towards whether it's current or formerly wealthy white women.
I understand that.
Like I don't have a lot of sympathy for you, even when tragedy strikes you and you no longer have anything. You know, it's kind of like maybe that's the world balancing things out and you're not supposed to have as much as you thought you were supposed to have.
It can't be understated that there is the element of a fall from grace with these characters.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jackie Kennedy was America's little princess, okay?
Very much so.
And then even after her husband was, for lack of a better term, murdered, and she had to carry on with that and then met somebody else and moved on. And nobody gave her shit for that. Nobody gave her shit for that.
No, much like Edie, she was iconic. I mean, much more. So.
Nobody would have dared look at Jackie O and say, how dare you move on with an even bigger, more influential, richer man.
She's got to be the only first lady that ever remarried.
To be fair, she was probably the only one young enough to do so.
You don't think that Eleanor Roosevelt could have moved in with her lover?
Eleanor Roosevelt did move in with her lesbian lover.
Yes, of course, that's what I was implying.
Yes.
I mean, we all know this.
But to be fair, her lesbian lover lived in the White House the entire time they were there.
Much like, who was the gay president? That wasn't Calvin Coolidge, was it?
No, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up.
It was a younger one. But yeah, his friend, a senator, his lifelong companion.
Yep.
Lived in the White House with him, or yeah.
They just give him a job.
Yeah.
They just give him a job.
Yeah. You're on to something, but I don't know what it is.
Things make a little bit more sense about President South Africa.
Okay. You're gonna sprain an ankle in all these rabbit holes.
Oh, this one I'll never be able to prove. But if the pattern is to be maintained that the current master of the White House brings their secret lover in by just giving them a job, like Eleanor Roosevelt was like a correspondent for some newspaper or another. She was the White House correspondent for like Chicago or New York Tribune or some shit, right? And yeah, so they just give a job to justify them being there like all the time.
They didn't hand the government over to them.
You know, we do funny things when we're in love.
Are you implying that there is?
We do.
First of all, nobody.
I handed over
either of those men.
I handed over my entire motherfucking life to a narcissist with daddy issues for 4 years.
You were talking about the two most unfuckable men on the planet.
Exactly.
The Libra husband is not an easy man to please. The monotony of domesticity is not to his liking, but he is a passionate man and a respecter of tradition. All I have to do is find this Libra man. The Libra husband is reasonable. He is a born judge, and no other zodiacal type can order his life with so much wisdom. My God, that's all I need, order. That's all I need, an ordered life. You know, a manager. But he's got to be a Libran. Oh. Yeah.
Smells like Jerry.
Oh, is that Jerry? For goodness sake.
What are you doing?
Jerry, you're Aquarius, aren't you? That's what I saw when I met you, Joe. Remember I said the marble fawn? It was terrible. Terrible, the tragedy connected with the marble fawn. You know, I called Jerry the marble fawn.
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah. You have that book here, Edie?
Haven't been able to find it.
If you run across it, I'd like to read it.
It's very deep. I don't know whether you... Well, I guess you're up to it. They used to have it on all the... I think it was on the high school reading list. Marble fawn. The Libra husband does not seek divorce unless the conditions of his life are not adjustable. I don't believe in divorce at all. I think divorce...
Was your mother divorced? Oh, no.
No.
Separated.
Yes, and then my father got a fake Mexican divorce, and he did have, you know, what he called another wife that we didn't recognize. It wasn't recognized by the Catholic
You know what
Church.
it's time to do?
They don't
It's
recognize
time to do a
it,
segment.
you know.
Let's do the Bechtel test.
Okay.
The B&R Bechtel, which is we ask if there is a mother maiden crone.
I
in this
ain't
one.
explaining this one. You explain this one because of course there is, but go for it.
You want me to call them out?
If you can't figure it out, you have different problems.
Well, I mean, obviously.
This one's so obvious that, like, you can get arrested for not stopping at it.
Okay, I mean, little Edie, the maiden, in many ways, even more of a maiden, the virgin, and Big Edie, I'm going to say, is both the mother and the crone. She has mother elements.
You're almost done. Because you're right, but you're missing one little factor.
Are we missing the factor that little Edie is a crone?
No. Little Edie is the maiden. Big Edie is the crone, and they are both the mother.
How can you say something so controversial yet so true?
About a Kennedy.
Here we do. So maybe the cronage is causing the well, it's not causing, but it's an aspect of the imbalance that goes back and forth. The total power play.
Well,
Constant.
so when you take the maiden mother crone, you have to take into consideration. You know that old riddle, the Sphinx riddle
Yes,
from the Oracle, the Sphinx riddle.
4 legs, 2 legs, 3 legs.
Correct. It's the exact same thing.
Big Edie walks on 3 legs.
But it's the exact same thing as maiden mother crone.
There
Is
you go.
one woman should be able to encompass all of them, barring, of course, her life being cut short.
So I guess is that sort of like the
However,
is that what you call a complete circle? If
Yes.
you can maybe
Yes.
even if you do live long enough, I don't think every woman would.
Yes, eventually, simply because unless you are just that obtuse, you cannot actually prevent wisdom. You can prevent the amount,
Oh.
but you can't prevent it at all.
So cronage is an inevitable.
It is. It's just to what degree do you become the
So
crone?
if you've had a life, if you've had experience,
Like, I don't think she would be offended, being that at her age, if I said that Tilda Swinton is starting to embrace the crone.
I think she has for a while. Honestly,
The crone aspects were always in her. She's just now embracing that in new ways.
so we have a scene in which Edie is served breakfast that she ruins
Yes.
by her singing. So much to the point that Big Edie gets up and walks out of the room. She threatens to never be seen again. And they have also put a jacket over her since her bathing suit is open in the back. But as you see, shit. I'm never the one that coughs.
No, you're usually not. It's always me.
I don't even burp or make noises. You know, when a man gets a certain age, he just starts making noises.
No, that's why I live without men.
Your sneezes, it's pretty gross.
Like, I realize that, like, women do it too. That's the
I
other.
know, but
that's,
just like the bigger our prostates get, just the more we let loose.
is that the real one? No shiz.
That's the real one?
Yeah.
Henry's too small to read.
Don't worry about reading it. I just picked one that was the real one and not a new animated one.
Look at her. Come
Let
on,
her go.
baby.
And she makes it all the way to the top.
How does she do it?
We don't even know
They're
why
not
she did
supposed
it.
to do that. They're not even
Look at her.
equipped to do it.
And it just happened. We had a diver there, and she saw the sun. And you can't not fucking cry.
God.
You cannot fucking cry. Look at, there's the diver with her, how small she is.
She's so little.
And they have determined full size. Like, that's just her size.
Oh my God. Honestly.
Look at her face.
You can't be moved by it. No, that baby.
Yeah. Like, black teeth and everything. Like, so tiny. And yeah, that's little Edie.
It is little Edie, because let's be honest, that anglerfish possibly saw something no other anglerfish has ever seen.
Yeah.
Or ever experienced. She broke through that
was it did
that
she
they don't know exists. They don't know
they
that
know
there's
that
something.
light. They know that light is something. That's all they know, is that spots of light are something. Did she think it was her mom? Did she think it was their version of God? Did she think it was her soul? No one knows. No one will ever know. And we've never seen this behavior in anglerfish before of any species. So, to say the least, yeah, that's exactly what little Edie did. She broke the mold, broke away, and went to find that light.
Mm-hmm.
Why she did it, we do know, because of her life.
We know
we
exactly
don't with
why.
the anglerfish. It could have been anything.
And little Edie, only died in 2002. So she not I would like to think that's the happiest she'd been. After New York, she moved to Florida and just had her days on the beach
and found the sun.
And she would visit with friends, but for the most part, she just enjoyed being alone. Can you imagine the silence?
Well, Cabaret makes sense because after her mother passed, she would have needed to be surrounded by people to fill the noise, or to make the noise fill the silence.
It's no surprise that she had mostly gay audiences. It's one of our, also we'll talk about the queer element in this film, which is huge.
Well, before we do that, because that's its own segment, and I want to actually have you cover our good friend Roger Ebert first.
Oh, enema of the show, Roger Ebert. This was 1975. He most definitely saw this movie. There is a review online you can read, and it's clear that he liked the movie.
He gave it 5 stars.
He gave it 5 stars, and his review is a big fat nothing. It's a Wikipedia entry that explains what the film is, what they do. It's like if you like on our video, hit the what is it that sums it up for you?
The synopsis.
The synopsis.
Because it's just an extended version.
There's Roger Ebert's review. If AI had existed in Ebert's day, he would have used it for all of his movie reviews. It's a big fat nothing. And I want to also say, on the level of Ebert, there are so many bad takes of this movie. I saw a video recently that was talking about the movie being an invasion of privacy, which I think even you would disagree with.
Well, it's hard to be an invasion of privacy when the camera's in front of your face.
Right.
Like, if I hold my camera up to you and tell you I'm filming you live on Instagram right now and you start doing some dumb shit, this is not an invasion of your privacy.
I mean, even besides the obvious fact that they filmed for 6
I also
weeks,
do not believe they have addled brains, but they're not addled in a way of, like, they were not coerced into doing this.
Oh, absolutely not. That's why I never thought of it as exploitive. And not to mention, they don't invade their privacy. They go to great lengths to keep the dignity of these two characters intact.
Despite every effort, both women show it trying to shed the dignity on screen.
Onto each other or with their own...
if you didn't know who these people were, you might assume this takes place somewhere in rural Appalachia.
Based on the woods, yeah, you could. If it wasn't for their accent, which is not a New England accent.
No, but if you were unfamiliar with the accents, you might just assume, because if you didn't know who these people were, that is their behavior. What you expect of rural West fucking Virginia.
You do. I think it is important that you do bring something to the table and know at least where these people come from and who they are.
Without knowing that these are literally Jackie O's aunt and cousin, you just assume you're watching another episode of Gypsy Sisters.
They give you an exposition at the beginning, just enough. This movie it's 90 something minutes long, or this edit is, I should say. But it's a great example of less is more, using your limitations for your strengths. They give you just enough.
Well, it's very claustrophobic in that Appalachian rural way, because despite all of the pretty panoramics that they give you of the surrounding areas, you don't see the mansion except in distant shots because they don't film it.
They keep it very close, and it does reflect
There's
the
like
enmeshment and relationship
there are
that
like
the Edie's have.
4 rooms that these people use, and one of them is the attic they're feeding the raccoons
Right.
in, and another one is that patio they're laying out on.
You see some exteriors just to show you, I mean, their setting and where they are, obviously, but like I said, I still think they go to great lengths to maintain the dignity of their characters. There is, in the documentary we'll link, called Last Summer, which is has a lot of the Maysles talking about their experience with the Beales. There's a great scene in which they go out in the woods, and little Edie is sitting in a very nice chair that is just in the woods. And she goes on to describe that the chair came from Chippendales and is like a history of this chair. And
there's your raccoons again.
Who knows? I want to talk about the worst take I've ever heard of this movie. And I'm going to play it for you, but I'll put it into the video. It's by Polyester Magazine, which there is an article with their full take on this movie. It's behind a paywall. Do not pay it. Do not read it.
Grey Gardens is an antidote to the fear of not finding romantic love. If you don't, there is a life waiting for you where you can feed the raccoons that pour through the hole in the attic, where you eat corn on the cob served bedside, where you eat ice cream straight from the tub and still feel like you deserve to parade around in all your little outfits. It doesn't matter if you have an idealized version of the film, because this fantasy is what has made the film so enduring for generations of girls and women.
Okay, so what is it that you disagree with about that clip?
The fact that they have so badly misunderstood the movie that they claim that some of us have an idealized version of the movie, which I think is impossible to have, as if they are living this life by design, like they are girl bossing it, and they have given up on finding love, and this is their retreat from that. When in fact, I mean, obviously little Edie yearned for love, and they want to portray this as if parade around in your little outfits, as they say, as if it's not a coping mechanism for this life, as if they weren't suffering this entire time. And I think it's insulting to the movie and the characters, and to me.
But I think you might be missing the fact that it's satire. The clip, not the movie.
I don't think it is.
Now, I don't know enough about whoever posted it to say it with certainty, but the idealization of girls and women I can absolutely see.
It is a total projection, that take. And I'm going to say it's not satire, because if you look at any other takes that Polyestrozine has, they're just as awful.
Okay.
And also the fact that I was so appalled by their take. This was on Instagram, and I am now blocked from Polyestrozine.
Congrats, I suppose.
Fuck them anyway.
So there's this element of expectation of women where we can do what we want up to a point, and then it's time to let the man take over and have his babies and take care of his house, and eventually you just really want to reach a point where he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're lucky, you've married well and inherit well when he dies, and you can now live the life of Grey Gardens without repercussion.
I know, but I really feel that take of them living their best life really diminishes these characters, their experience, and the intent of the filmmakers altogether.
It does, but you have to also understand something too, that the life they are living, granted there's a lot of hoarding and dirt and disgusting things happening here, but living in seclusion, able to dance our little marches and wave our little flags and make our little outfits out of curtains and have 50 million cats, it is exactly what the patriarchy fears.
But I think also, I agree.
What everyone loses sight of is who these people are. And that clip came from someone who had no idea that those were the Beales. That clip was from a person who watched this and thought, oh, well, when you don't need a man, this is how you can live.
And they're wrong.
And that's true when you take out who these people are.
Well, they're missing a very important aspect of it, is that their actions, especially little Edie's, was coming from a place of like trauma and denial and a yearning to be free. Like I think we mentioned before, the fact that she could make these outfits out of whatever she had was her just.
And
like,
I think it also outraged her mother. How many times prior to this being filmed did her mother rage at her about her ludicrous clothing?
I'm sure. And just like the singing when her mother complained and
by
she
the
sang
time
louder,
they got to filming this, they had already reached this point of how much they were willing to put up with each other.
Yes.
Had they filmed this at the start, it would have been vastly more antagonistic and maybe even deadly.
Very true.
Because they hadn't had time yet to circle each other and establish in their very small quarters their territories.
You could, also, if you notice the difference in the beds, Big Edie's is a mess and it's covered with her souvenirs and her past life. Little Edie, keeps her bed very neat and tidy.
Yes.
Because that is her one domain.
Yes.
In the entire house.
Yes.
And an entire life, maybe.
It's the one area of the home that she has 100% entire control over. And money aside, because again, if you can spend $120, $30, $40, $70, whatever it was, on ice cream and $21 on the lawn guy, that house is not in disarray because you can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Some things, yes. Some things are big maintenance bills when you own a home like that. I get that. But you didn't not throw that away because you don't have a trash can and can't afford one.
No, and I assume that since little Edie moved in later, that a lot of, at least some of that was there when she got there. And because of, and she might well have even tried to find some semblance of order and literally been beaten out of it. Because, when you have, when mental illness becomes, a lot of things are just overwhelming. And
pick your battles.
And you're dealing with your mother
and this mother,
and you're already not so well yourself and traumatized.
I know that the coffee cup is full of maggots, but that is exactly where she wants it, so that is exactly where we will leave it.
And
because I am just not willing to face the aftermath of moving it.
There you go. Yeah. And I think it says too that what we see, their dynamic, is a level of complacency, even though it is a bit volatile.
I also think, if you look around my loft, everything is exposed. I do not have boxes outside of my holiday decor and 2 boxes of the kids' stuff from when they were itty bitty babies, like hospital shit and documents and whatnot that you don't need or whatever every day. Aside from those, I do not keep things stored up. I do not have mementos that I store away. Everything is on display somewhere in my home. And I think that hoarding aspect and having everything everywhere was also Big Edie's way of seeing all of her possessions at once.
It was really spread out in front of her in a lot of scenes. And I maybe she keeps it like that all the time.
For sure. Granted, I have boatloads of documents and journals that I could just spread all over my floor if I really wanted to see them all.
Threatening to kill you if they...
right, if I really, really wanted to. I guess I shouldn't say that. Not everything is full on display, but seriously, go open that cabinet. It's all there. It's not in boxes in a storage unit. So I understand the concept of wanting... You worked and you earned, however, all of your possessions, right? It doesn't matter how they came to you. By the time you are a certain age, like Big Edie, your things matter. How many times does she tell little Edie, I want to see this, or put this up, or I want this here, or whatnot?
She wants the photos.
She wants to see her shit. She wants her life around her. I get that. I respect that. I am the same way. You are the same way. Look at your home. It is the exact same. You have all of your things that you want to look at about your life surrounding you. And I don't blame her for that. But the problem is that this woman needed to recount every moment of her life. And little things were not enough. I can tell you the story of where Skull Bob came from and why I like to have him out. I don't need his paperwork out.
You don't need a paper trail of where he came from, where you were, who you were at the time of getting him.
Right. I don't need that.
There is a chain of resentment often in this movie between Big Edie, Little Edie, and Jerry, because each of them are a different stage, maybe. 2 feet, 4 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet.
Yes.
And it's passed along. That's why I really do think that little Edie takes a lot of frustration out on Jerry because...
Well, he's the little brother now.
Well, or she's... what did Big Edie say? He doesn't want sex with you.
Yeah.
There's also that... I don't know which... Well, little Edie does say something about her mother not being taken care of sexually. So
she was never taken care of sexually.
Yeah.
Like never.
So there's this.
How the fuck do you? No, you know what? We don't need to go in behind the scenes on that one.
I don't know. I think it's just a way of them digging deep into each other.
To be fair, like I've always believed in age-appropriate conversations with your kids. You should not be just dumping every adult fact onto them. Tailoring things for age-appropriate levels is exactly how things should be done. But eventually, when you're 80 and your kid is 60, that age-appropriate has run out.
Sure.
Like no matter what, it's run out. And you're also now at a limit of understanding that it doesn't matter if there are just certain things you don't talk about with your kids. You ain't got nobody else.
Well, the idea, not the idea, but the fact of their enmeshment together is so obvious in the movie. Even how they live in the room together. I think I've already said this. And then that sort of like personal dig on each other is just... They're one and the same. They're both Edies, for Christ's sake. I mean, they're like...
Yeah, that alone should say something about the power dynamic that Big Edie has with her daughter. Like, you're already from birth inferior to me.
Yes.
Because you are Edie 2. You will never be Edie 1.
And I'll make sure you never become Edie 1. Because you can't sing. You looked old for 21.
24.
24.
Which is considerably older than 21, as you know.
Yeah. Considerably older. Let's talk about... Let's go into the queer element, because it's significant.
Now we got the queer element.
Little Edie Beale is, by all means, a queer icon. I think a lot of that is because of her just appeal. The fact that she was steadfast in her truth. She never... As dramatic as she was never lying in her presence.
I think part of it too is that she was an outcast her whole life.
Exactly.
And knew what that felt like from a very internal perspective and could see it within the people of the gay community. The same people who were treated the same way, not the same way for the same reasons, but with the same levels of disdain that she was treated.
I think they saw that in her too, because the fact that
she was kin.
She was kept down. She was whack-a-mole by her mother, and the setting she is, no matter, she still found a way to find joy in her singing, in her dancing.
Well, it's the same as if you, as a man, were told your whole life by your mother, why can't you be straight? Why can't you like girls? Why can't you get a girlfriend? When are you going to get married? When are you going to settle down with a nice girl and have babies? And you're gay. And your mom is not listening to the part about how you're gay. And that's never going to happen.
These are 1970s gay.
Whereas Edie was doing the same exact thing. Her mother was telling her, you're never going to be a singer. Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that?
Why don't you fit in?
They were 100, the gay community, especially in New York during that time, which would have also been rise of the AIDS pandemic.
I was going to mention that.
Being someone like that as an ally would have been a huge deal for the community.
There is also, by the way, the marble faun, Jerry, is gay.
Interesting.
And there's no allusion to it here because he may not even known at the time he was a.
Well, it's not a plot point. It doesn't in any
It doesn't
way.
matter at all the story. It's just
the only thing it does is make you giggle a little bit harder when you think about little Edie's fascination with the fact that he wanted to bang her. It gives you a little extra chuckle. Because no,
he
might have been wanting to bang the filmmakers though.
I don't know. You caught a glimpse of them in the mirror. I don't remember. They're probably a couple of handsome fellas. Interesting, though, fun fact, she called him the Marble Faun based on the character who resembled a sculpture of the Marble Faun. Jerry Torrey went on to be a sculptor.
Isn't it weird how that shit works?
Crazy. There is... Brian Lauder wrote a pretty good article, it's not that long, it's in the newsletter, where he talked about the camp element of this movie too, and he described it great. He said, camp is the queer pleasure in unintentional nuance.
Here's my only argument with that, is camp is in fact intentional.
And
none of this movie was intentional.
Perhaps camp is the representation of this unintentional nuance?
I don't think you can truly put camp in a documentary.
There's no element of irony in this movie.
I don't think you can truly put camp in a documentary where the subject is full well aware of their performance.
I don't know. I think maybe it takes...
Because it would either come off false if they were trying to make it campy, or it just is. You can't make real life in your face campy.
Could you see these two as characters in a John Waters movie?
This is a John Waters movie. He just doesn't know it.
She's just not feeding her eggs.
Once we finished the film, we wanted the first people to see it. It would be the mother and her daughter. So we brought the film to Grey Gardens with a projector. We showed it to them, and there was a moment of silence, and then Edie walked back and forth in the room and in an extremely loud voice shouted, "The Maysles have created a classic." So we knew right away that the film was approved, and quite heartily. All of that being in great contrast to some of the reviews that we got where we were criticized for exploiting these women, whatever. Some people just don't understand the difference between getting to know somebody very intimately and somehow or other hurting them and exploiting them. There's an interesting word in this regard, and it shows you how cockeyed this culture is with regard to people getting to know one another on an intimate level. The word is vulnerability, and somehow when one speaks of another person candidly exposing their inner thoughts to another person, the word is, their vulnerabilities, as if through the process of being very open with another person, you're going to get hurt, because that's what the word vulnerable means. You're exposing yourself to the possibility of getting hurt. Now, why people choose that word rather than another word, I don't even know what that other word would be, but a word that expresses the notion that by opening your heart and soul to another person, you're doing something healthful and beneficial, something that shows your strength and adds to your strength, which I think is the case of what happened with the Beales. I think that their opportunity to be recognized as artists, as women of creative fashion, of an eccentric, an eccentricity that nevertheless was a love story. There was a genuine and beautiful love between these two women under odd circumstances. But people use this word vulnerable. I would like to find out what that word is, or see a word invented that expresses the fact that people can be benefited in a very positive way by sharing their thoughts and emotions with other people. We seem to stress the fact, you're going to be hurt if you tell people who you really are. I don't go with that.
I'm pretty sure it's directed by David Lynch.
There is a camp element. I can't help but not see it. Maybe it's not intentional. Maybe I don't know. Camp did exist then, but
that's exactly it. Camp didn't exist.
I mean, the garishness of their performances.
That's
their
the kitsch.
actions.
That's the kitsch. It's kitschy.
You think it's kitschy, not campy?
Yeah, but also a sign of the time. It's hard to look at anything from the 70s and not call it kitschy.
I mean, the color.
Rosemary's Baby is kitschy. Everything in the Dakota is kitschy. I'm sorry. Her whole lemon yellow loft, the whole thing is kitschy.
In Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah.
Yeah. That movie's a lot of things. Scary is not one of them.
No, but I'm just saying everything that came out of the 70s is kitschy. Sleepaway Camp, and that's early 80s. Kitschy. Also campy.
I love Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, it's free on Prime if anyone's interested. So were you done with that segment?
I think so. I mean, like I said, I think we mentioned it a lot through the film, and the queer element is obvious. And if you can find takes on it everywhere. We got a couple links. There's a very long article that I didn't have time to read. I'm going to go back and read all about it. I highly recommend you look at it.
So I have a new segment I kind of want to add. I thought would be fun, which is a you might like.
Oh,
so 2 ways I want to do this, which is if you liked, you would like this.
Right.
But I also want to do it if you liked this, you might like.
Is that the same thing?
But backwards, because
I see. Okay. I mentioned John Waters' movie. I think
I'm gonna let you run with this one. This one is like one of your tops. I'm gonna let you. So if you liked what, you would like Grey Gardens.
If you like John Waters films, especially like Polyester, you would like this because you already have one foot in this world. Do you know one?
Oh, ouch. Not in the sense of a documentary itself, no. Probably not. I think this one does stand its own test of time. Like you said, it's a moment in history, and it's hard to find documentaries. Yeah, they're their own moments of history, but not that parallel. They all just kind of cross-sect through history. And you could literally pick any documentary that is a living historical moment and get that same effect. But the mood is really more what I'm going for, the overall mood. And you're going to laugh when I say this, but if you liked Grey Gardens, you will love Harold and Maude.
That's a good one. I'm going to go back on what we already mentioned, which is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Mm.
If you like that movie, you like this. And if you like this, you'll like both. And if you are as gay for this shit as I am, you already love both of them.
I'm also going to say that if you liked Grey Gardens, you will love the Liza Minnelli Cabaret.
Very much so.
Neither of which are documentaries, full-fledged fiction. But vibe, mood, overall feel, walking away from the film, the same feeling, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, also watch some cinema verite. Go back and watch some. I don't think it's Godard. I can't remember the French people's name, but check it out for a similar style of movie. Man, that's a good question. I wish I had a better answer for.
That's all right. Now you'll be prepared for the future.
I have copious notes for this one today, and I've gone through all of them.
And you haven't been stumped even once on this one. And normally you ooh and over a lot, and you didn't this time, so I had to trip you up somewhere.
That's an I ummed the shit out of it.
Now you know it's a segment, so you can plan ahead for what's next. Gonjazilla. No,
it's Guzzo. I'm sorry, Gozu. You know what? I'm going to bring to the erratas some better movies that you would like if you like this.
All right.
Do we have any erratas, by the way, for Evil Tunes? No, I don't.
No. My brain is refusing to go there.
Other than since it was a watch along, unlike every other episode, there wasn't a lot of clips in it, so it were hard to fit them in because I wanted to keep it in real time, so I would only take out sounds that I'd keep the gap,
Right.
So
right.
It was tough.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
It worked out, and it's our highest viewed so far. Thank you, everyone who has contributed to listening.
By the way, boobs.
Yes, we found out boobs is a keyword, and boobs that's a good thing because boobs is something we happen to really like around here at Blazed and Reviewed. We have decided to start keeping boob counts for all of our films. Grey Gardens has one accidental boob shot and is not one you want to see, so we're just going to roll it with a solid 0. To be fair,
there's some cleavage, but this isn't that kind of movie. So
some dignity on that one. Otherwise, we will have a final boob count, a final body count, and a final boob count, kill count by the end of our year, when we will also be hosting our Blazies. We're fine-tuning some of that right now.
The best boobs. We'll get the Wiggly Quiggly
That
Award.
is correct. That is correct.
We're getting. I'm excited, but I haven't seen half the movies yet.
That's fair. And there's quite a few, and we still have some that are gapped. And so we're looking for suggestions. If anyone has anything, please drop it in the comments. Let's now play our fun little game of the BNRCU. How do we connect this baby to any of our others?
Oh, I mean, there is. I think in the fact of the confidence, the feminine energy might go back to Orlando.
Yeah.
I want to say too, real quick, it says a lot to the character and the anglerfishness of little Edie. The fact that after her mother died, that she did go on to do what she wanted to do.
Yeah, she find her right.
Cut that trauma off. She could have very easily stayed in the house or something similar because her mother was gone and she had no purpose. But she did. She did finally break free.
She always had a purpose.
And again, queer icon for a reason.
Yeah. So, we already talked about the queer element. Obviously, one that we haven't touched on that does seem to connect a good chunk of our movies is really big houses.
There is houses. We had the Evil Toons house, which was also used in like Rob Zombie's and the People Under the Stairs. Rob Zombie's Halloween. The Demon Night of the Demons house was used in a bunch of stuff.
Hell House, whatever that was called. Orlando, of course, lived in palaces and giant estates. Grey Gardens, huge estate.
Yeah, very. I mean, the house was essential. Like I said, not a character, but it
wasn't a house, but arguably the setting of Deep End was a huge pool.
Well, no, a fact. The pool bathhouse was most definitely a character. It surrounded them with the colors. That was
right. But I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about what connects them all together.
What connects them all together?
I mean, obviously, we have another dance scene. We have a couple little dance scenes.
There's a things like that. I mean, not even just film elements, but yeah, there's a dance scene that can go with it. Yeah. There is.
Do we have any crossovers? Like we've been able to put film casting crews as working together.
I don't think we've had any crossover as far as, unlike Smut, where we're doing all of F.W. Murnau's movies.
Well, no, because we've had several crossovers, like Linnea Quigley working with.
Oh yeah, well, Fred Olin Ray. Yeah,
and
that's true.
Like they're all over the place.
Hollywood Scream Queen, Hot Tub Party.
Yeah, and what's his name from Deep End working with Polanski, and we're gonna do The Ninth Gate, and yeah, I mean we've got. Is there anybody that connects in any capacity whatsoever?
I don't think so, because this was a very they were the two. That's all. That's the crew.
Yeah.
Who did it? We don't have a Jackie Onassis connection.
I don't think so.
This one stands alone, except that in one scene, little Edie was dressed in Technolust red.
That's true. She had a lot of elements of the clones all wrapped into one, I think.
Well, she was fighting to not be Big Edie's clone.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I suppose there is a bit of a overlay to Technolust there, where although granted Rosetta Stone was very kind and loving and whatnot, and she certainly wasn't telling her clones that they would never amount to anything and she'd just give up now.
Baby pictures.
Yeah, baby pictures. But they were excited about that. Like there was no resentment happening there.
There was no microwave, but there was a hole in the wall where the raccoons came out.
Yeah,
And as far as reaches go, you done reached.
Well,
boarding house reaches, my father would say.
Do you have any reaches? You're usually the reacher. I know I'm taking it this time, but do you have any?
I can't compete with the one you did.
I'm going to look it up. I'm going to include it entirely separate, like the Epstein connection in the newsletter.
It's hard to make a reach for a movie that is just so honest and
it's hard not to reach, though, when it's about the Kennedy family.
I think Polyestrozine made the biggest reach I've ever heard.
Like you could, I mean, for one, it's telling that when you do take into context that it is a side swipe of the Kennedy family, that there was plenty of money here to make it all just go away. And nobody did. They made Rosemary Kennedy go away, but they didn't make the Beales go away.
Yeah, I think we talked about the again, just as the Beales were keeping up, not keeping up appearance, but they were maintaining that air of.
But I wonder too if that was a level of the Bouviers and later the Onassis family and even the Beales saying maybe if we don't feed it, it won't grow, instead of trying to obliterate it. Like,
well, is that the same as if you ignore it, it'll go away?
Yeah, kind of. Not necessarily go away, but like I won't have to deal with it. Well, yeah, and for how long did they not have to deal with it until all of a sudden everybody's like, Jackie, oh, look at your aunt.
You can probably count on two hands how many times they probably visited Rose Kennedy her entire life.
Well, yeah.
No.
She was lobotomized. She wouldn't have noticed.
Okay, fair enough. I suppose. I don't know.
And by all accounts, the little one, not JFK, but the young one, the younger one, the younger brother.
Jr.?
No, his JFK's
Bobby
younger
Kennedy.
brother, Bobby Kennedy, used to visit Rosemary all the time.
He was the good one.
All the time. He was the one that took over all of the funding when he realized that there was nowhere else. After all that had been done to her, there was nowhere else she could go but into one of those places, as much as he didn't want her to.
Listen, if you want to get deep, like there's so many deep dives for the Kennedys. Where do they live? Camelot, they call it? Or Xanadu? The hell was it?
Camp David?
No.
No, that's the president's little getaway. I don't know. Xanadu is on that 50
Neverland.
Worst. That was Michael Jackson.
I know.
And
Xanadu
Peter.
was Citizen Kane's estate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So
Hearst Castle. I've been to Hearst Castle.
How was it?
I was really young and didn't care. It was brown and a lot of brown and a lot more brown.
Boring.
It's in the desert, so.
So please do yourself a favor. Do watch Grey Gardens. There's no excuse not to. It's great.
There's no excuse not to. There's like 9 links of where you can watch in the newsletter. Yeah. And you're already on YouTube if you're listening to this. This is now over, so you can easily just go boop, boop, boop.
So thank you for listening. If you did, if you made it to this part, I love you.
I am going to go ahead and say that I did enjoy the experience watching it. I wasn't so thrilled with all of the parallels that I discovered with that angsty teen still living inside of me. But hey, healing journey, go, go, go. We all got a little anglerfish inside of us.
I think a lot of people saw the movie that way, as sort of not cathartic, but it hits close to home. Anyone who's had that dynamic or that sort of history.
It makes me very grateful that in her end years, at the end of her life, my mom and I were able to really build a good relationship.
Yeah.
And have something solid that I didn't look at her death as this great relief. I mean, I did because she was sick, but not to me.
It wasn't a burden.
It wasn't like that fucking bitch is finally dead. Even though 10 years ago, if you would have asked me what I would do when my mother passed away, I would have been going, ding dong, the witch is dead.
May she live to at least 80.
You know, like, yeah. Like, I'm hosting the party, woo, woo, woo. And when she did pass, like, none of that. I felt like none of that.
Well, I will say, I appreciate you watching the film with me. I appreciate you enjoying it. It was a movie that is very near and dear to me, and I love sharing it.
It's going to be hard to find a documentary for next season.
It's all yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, in fact, I don't know, this might not be fair because Gozu is a blind watch for you, but you can watch it.
But In the Mouth of Madness isn't a blind watch. It's a blind watch for
me.
you, so it evens itself out. Same thing with Johnny Depp month.
2 blind watches.
Yeah.
Wow, that's it. That's all we got. We got blind watches until.
Pride Month. We have both seen all of our Pride months, right? But I'm a cheerleader, Tu Wong Fu, and Reefer Madness.
It's been a while.
Yeah. And then that should lead us up in, I think we were blank on September right now. There's some filled in. I don't know, I'll have to double check the calendar. I would like to
We might have a guest too. We're going to have some guests.
Most definitely having some more guests. I know I want to have Spooky back on. But I definitely want to try and work up a calendar for you guys for next season.
Oh, yeah, we'll share it this time.
That we can maybe put out with the newsletter, post somewhere. We'll figure that out. Big things coming, especially now that the production company is coming along. So we want to just say a big thank you to everybody who's been here from day one. We appreciate you. To everybody who's just joining us. We
searched for boob movies.
I hadn't made it that far. To those just joining us, we appreciate your attendance. We hope that you will stick along whether or not we feature boobs. But we see you. Just want you to know that. We just want you to know that we see you.
You are people.
And you are our people. You are our people. You are in the right place.
Stay tuned for more.
Keep searching for boobs, and we will keep providing.
And I just want to say that we're kicking against the pricks, and if the pricks kick back, they don't know that they're dealing with a staunch character.
This has been Blazed and Reviewed, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
You have just enjoyed Blazed and Reviewed. Please to join us again next time as we take another dive hier dans the cinematic hellscape. Maybe you subscribe, perhaps to leave the comments. Is that so easy, so why not? One more thing, we have newsletter that is full of insight, information and so much more about every movie we watch. As for moi, I don't know what I would do without it. Read on toilet if you want, who cares? Is your life. Les règles.